Live. Doesn't look like a lot of difference.
I can see that's a long time.
That time of year,
Years. It may be improper to just put 6 million. We don't we can decide.
Well, I just want to say before we start that after we pledge allegiance to the flag, I'd like us to remain standing for a minute to recognize the tragedy that occurred in Parkland, Florida, and take a moment of silence to remember the children that died and their families and their friends and their teachers and their community. So we'll start with the pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
Would anybody like to add anything to the agenda?
I would.
Okay.
So usually we have 2 public participations, one at the beginning, one at the end. I see it was omitted at the beginning, and I'd move that we add public participation right after agenda item number 4.
Is there a second? I'd like to say that I omitted it for a reason.
Really?
Really. And I guess what I'll say about that is, first of all, I think communication is the most important thing that we can do as a community. We have to talk together. We have to work together. And really the lifeblood of our community, the heart of our community, is the people who work for this town. The workers in this town and all the departments are dedicated people. They're trying to do their best, and they go beyond what's needed to serve this community. They work overtime for free. They go out of their way. And I'm very pleased for every individual in that community. Also, the lifeblood of our community is our commissions, our boards, our committees, the people who volunteer their time to really set the course for our community, to move it forward. And of late, in the public participation, but public participation has been great in the last couple of years we've had it. People have given the board ideas and helped us to really do what we have to do. We're always open to what people have to say. But unfortunately, this can be used as a forum to criticize the workers in the town, to criticize people on committees and boards, and usually after election maybe it will happen more than when people get used to it. But I've noticed it occurring again, and some people have been upset by what was said in the meeting. So we're going to change public participation back to the way it was a couple of years ago. And if we can do well with public participation, and then maybe we can open it up a little bit more. But the way we'll have it tonight is you raise your hand and I'll call on you. You have the floor. You shouldn't take too much time, probably 2 minutes, and say what you have to say. And then I'll call in another person, and they can say what they have to say. And we probably won't, and we won't respond, so we'll just listen to you. If you have questions, you can call me, you can come to my office, you can write them down, a piece of paper, give it to me or Peg. But we're going to curtail public participation a little bit. So I would like to start today with just one participation at the end of the meeting. And that's why I didn't put it to 2 at the beginning.
So just as and I understand what your point is, two things to consider is when we did it with just the one public participation, it was at the outset of the meeting, not at the end. And the second point is what that does is it allows for the board to consider points that people may offer on items that are on the agenda that have not yet been acted on, rather than hearing about it after we've acted on it.
Is there a second to add it to the agenda?
Really, guys?
Hearing no second, that we will not add it to the agenda. Okay, the next is the presentation of the Heart Safe Community Award. So, you got dressed up, I put a suit coat on.
If we can just wait for the picture for 1 minute, I'll just talk about it really
Yes,
quick
please.
and introduce people. Thank you for allowing us to come tonight. So about a month ago or so, or 2 months ago now, I applied for the town to become designated as a heart safe community, which means just for my job, part of it would be gathering the data to figure out if we qualified for it and how we could maintain that for the 3-year process. So I was able to reach out to all of our emergency services in the community, as well as the school system and their nurse director, and they basically helped me put the application together, and it was submitted, and we were approved. So tonight with us we have the director of the Department of Public Health, Office of Emergency Medical Services, Rafaela Kohler, and Stacy Durante, who is the Region 3 EMS coordinator, and they're here to present us with our designation, as well as some signage that will be put up around town designating the town of East Windsor as a heart-safe community. So we are going to take a picture and present the town with that. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to say.
Well, yeah, I'd like to add a few words. Good evening, everyone. So I'm here on behalf of Dr. Pino, who is our Commissioner for the Department of Public Health, and he wrote a letter, and it says, "Dear Selectman Maynard, on behalf of the Connecticut Department of Public Health and the American Heart Association, congratulations to your community for having met the requirements of a designated heart-safe community. This 3-year designation, effective January 19, 2018, recognizes your community's commitment to providing improved cardiac response and care to the residents of your community, utilizing the chain of survival of early 911 access, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, defibrillation, and advanced care. We commend you on your efforts to save lives and improve the health of your community." And I will give that to Dr. And it's actually both a letter from our commissioner and a certificate. One that I just took out. There you go.
Here we go.
And here's your letter. And here's the signage that we will have. And we have a whole box of goodies to leave. Never say the state hasn't given you anything, because we do have a box. And it is presents for the whole community. I just want to say a few words about HeartSafe. So the program was designed, as the EMS people know, from the American Heart Association, and it was to promote survival from sudden cardiac arrest. And they talk about the chain of survival. So the chain of survival starts with that first call to 911. Then it goes to, we have to do CPR, we have to do effective CPR. We have to have an AED, which is what you accomplished right now, is having enough AEDs in your town So if someone should go down from a sudden cardiac arrest, you are able to help that victim. And then obviously having the EMS service to that person, and then having the transport to a hospital where they can get advanced life support and the care that they need further. There's about 102 communities right now in Connecticut that have achieved HeartSafe status, and there's about 20 in the renewal system. So we welcome you to our club, and hopefully you won't have to use it, but if you do, I hope they have a positive response. Thank you for allowing us to present you this.
Thank you.
So if I can have all the emergency service personnel and Representative Davis and Representative Hall as well, if we want to stand behind probably the Board of Selectmen, and I can give this to you guys to hold. And, yeah. You guys want to stand up? You guys sure? Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm getting sideways.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Very good. How are you, Ben?
Okay, we'll go on to the next agenda item, which is to approve the minutes. I would move that the minutes of February 1st, 2018, the regular minutes be approved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in, or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I move that the minutes from the February 1st, 2018 public hearing meeting minutes be approved. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'm opposed, I was absent.
And now,
I'm sorry,
I'll pass out the minutes, the amended minutes from February 6th. So if you, and the amendments are highlighted in yellow.
Can I just give you a little background on that?
Sure.
You may want to delay postponing those so you have time to read the amendments. I was approached by the people that made those presentations to you, and they felt that there were comments in there that I transcribed that they did not make. So perhaps you'd like to read the amendments yourselves, and give yourselves time to consider them before you approve them. You might want to postpone approving them.
Bob, you want to delay approval of these then until we get a chance to look at them and compare them to the
Yeah, so
original minutes?
I would entertain a motion to do that.
I'd like to make a motion that we delay the approval of the town hall meeting
Workshop for February 6th.
of February 6th.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I abstained, I was absent.
And I would move that we approve the minutes of February 8th, 2018, the budget presentation workshop.
I have one amendment for you.
Second.
Please.
Second.
The amendment would be on page 9. It is under the Registrar of Voters comments. It's the second paragraph, after the discussion of how much they're asking for in the increase. It's the sentence that begins, Mr. Severino reported he and Mrs. Cinzagalo do not take salaries. They're not taking a salary increase this year.
Oh,
Okay, so they do take salaries.
okay.
Okay, so we could approve them with that amendment.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to approve the minutes of February 8th, 2018 budget presentation to say that the registrars do get salaries, but they're not going to take an increase this year.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion? All those approve?
Aye.
Okay, and I skipped over this, but I'd like to add to the agenda the Broadbrook Fire Department, because their fire truck lost a camshaft and they needed to be repaired. So I would entertain a motion to add them to the agenda at this time.
So moved.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So, Tom, you want to come up and
Where are we adding them?
7.5. Well, after committee, we'll add them at 6.5.
Not under new business?
No.
First page. The other day we were going to the fire. Or else when fire is away to them. And the truck started skipping. After the scene, their duty at the scene. They called, it was still skipping, so they called fleet masters in for a road call to see what was wrong with the truck. After the fire, the truck went to the fleet masters. They did some codes on it. They couldn't figure out quite what it was, so then we sent it down to Atlantic Detroit. And Atlantic Detroit come up with, next page, here's second page, next quote. Pump had pinhole, exhaust lobes, rockers, scored and pitted on the exhaust lobes of the cam. So it needs a cam, one injector, and seals, and the whole price is $7,000. Because I also have to go back and get three pump tested again, for $450. Now, I talked to Atlantic Detroit. They've done this same order, they've had 3 camshafts in the last year they've done. And all 3 have been holding fire trucks. They don't know why. So something just unique to a fire truck. They couldn't answer why.
And it is beyond any warranties.
Oh, yeah, the truck's 17 years old.
Okay.
I was gonna ask that, how old's the truck?
17 years.
Is it a good truck?
Yeah? Yeah,
Okay.
100 piece.
So, are you asking for $17,000? Like there's a
7,000.
$7,000.
7,000.
Seven.
There's two bills here.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's $6,282 on the front, on the Stewart Stevenson, which is on Detroit. And there's $868 for Fleet Masters, which is to re-pump test it, and the work that they performed. One was a road call fire, and one went to their shop before it was set down in Detroit.
And it's unusable in its current state.
Right.
Did you get more than one quote?
No. Because now for them, they have to take the engine apart, parts of it apart, and then they have to pay them to put it back together again, send it to somebody else, and re-diagnose the whole problem again.
It is disassembled now.
Yeah.
Currently it's
That's why
disassembled.
they found the cam was bad. They had to pull the rocker covers off and everything else.
Is this a company you've dealt with before? Is this where you would normally send?
This truck's
the
been done
vehicle?
before. 10 years ago, this truck, we were delivering a load of gasoline to our diesel tank, to the town's distributor. The motor blew on it. Have 2 new heads, all new injectors, and a couple new pistons, that burnt it up. And that's where I went for that last one, that was a $32,000 job, which insurance covered that one. We asked if that was part of it, could have caused a problem, they don't said no, it's just a unique problem. We don't know why fire trucks.
When you do this, is it like a car, is it guaranteed for life when they do
No.
it? What's the warranty on
There
it?
probably isn't much of a warranty. I know whatever the warranty.
Probably a 60 or 90-day warranty.
Yeah.
I would ask for that stuff like this. Now it's at Atlanta, Detroit diesel, so it is at Detroit,
Yep,
and there, that's why it's
yep,
there.
yep.
It sounds like, in this particular case, to get at the cause, you actually had to do some disassembly work.
Right.
If that was not the case, it was something that was diagnosable, would you normally get 3 quotes?
No, because
You'd go to these people?
there's only, not all mechanics work on fire trucks, like, Tri-State doesn't like to work on fire trucks. They want the liability. We usually use Fleet Master, that's who was the dealer for the truck at the time, and they've done all the service of the trucks, all of the trucks for the last 30 years.
So they are a
We went to them first.
service provider
Right.
for our fire department, for servicing of the equipment, even if it's not gone, if it's not down, just normal maintenance.
Right, they do all the normal maintenance on pump tests, the DOT inspections on it, everything.
So we need to get this truck fixed.
Yep.
No questions about it.
What's the lead time on fixing it?
It doesn't take them more than 4 or 5 days to fix it.
And what happens with it, without it? Do you have enough, you have adequate equipment?
We rely on Warehouse Point and the service running towns.
It's not adequate equipment though, because we're down 2,000
So you'd have to get assistance from
Right.
the
We
warehouse
would have to
point.
get added assistance which takes time to get into town, and
Mhm.
it could cause more property loss or something like that.
Can't wait.
So this is an unseen problem, and we need to get it fixed right away.
So I would say a supplemental appropriation.
So we need to do it right, get it done now.
Right.
Get the truck back on the road, because I don't want my house burning to the ground.
So is the company that you did get a bid from, do they have a state contract list?
I have no idea.
So how did we pick the company?
Because it was done the truck since they was new. This was always working. It's the only Detroit, they're the actual Detroit dealer in the state.
They're the one?
For an engine.
Yeah. Like you would bring,
There's one in the
if you
state?
would go over Mercedes, you would bring it to a Ford dealer.
No, but it might bring a Jaguar to a Hyundai dealership, because it's the same engine.
Yeah, we're not talking cars, we're talking fire gas.
You use the analogy, so it's.
I mean, yeah, it's a little different though.
How many qualified service providers are there here in Connecticut that you could have gone to?
Don't have that answer for you.
Couldn't tell you. But if you call all the, they were recommended from Fleet Master to go there.
Mhm.
And I would imagine if you called the other fire truck dealers, they're going to send you down here.
Mhm.
They specialize in Detroit. You know, if it was a Cat, we send it to H.O. Penn.
And that's a diesel engine, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay.
So Bob, what do we need to do to give them the money?
Well, I'll make a motion to request a supplemental appropriation in the amount not to exceed $7,200 to repair the fire truck engine and send it to the Board of Finance and then to a town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Jason?
How expended is your budget currently?
I have $19,000 left in the engineering budget, and I've got 2 more trucks that have to get their annual PMs, DOT inspections, and FPA inspections. And I haven't gotten billed for this truck's DOT or FPAs, and they're about $5,000 a piece,
So $5,000 a piece, that's $10,000.
$315,000.
There's 3, I thought you said there were 2. I just heard.
2 haven't gone out yet, one's already gone out, and
We haven't-
And you haven't got it,
haven't billed yet.
okay.
If it's under 20, does it have to go to a public hearing?
It doesn't necessarily have to go to a town meeting, but I think it's a good policy. You could amend the motion
Yeah,
not.
this is an emergency situation.
Okay,
You got an emergency vehicle, it's got to be fixed right now
okay,
and paid for.
okay.
Is there no more efficient way of getting the money to fix this, or do we have to go to a town meeting?
The Board of Finance has to approve this, so we don't have to go to a town meeting.
So
We can-
if we approve it and the Board of Finance approves it, it's a done deal?
Yeah, we'll have to amend the motion, but we can amend the motion.
Yeah, well, I think we ought to
Okay,
forget the
so-
town hearing, meeting. and
I'll
just get this
amend the
fixed.
motion, and I'll say, I'll rescind the motion if I can do that. So I'll move to request a supplemental appropriation in an amount not to exceed $7,200 to repair the fire truck and send the request to the Board of Finance.
So if you're going to rescind your motion, the seconder needs to rescind their second.
So, Andy, will you rescind your second?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
You want to read it again?
I'll read it again. I move to request a supplemental appropriation in the amount not to exceed $7,200 and send it to the Board of Finance. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. I don't like that you guys only did the one company. I get that it's an emergency, but generally.
It doesn't make any sense to put the truck back together. at
Usually we do it-
9 o'clock.
No, but you know the problem.
Even if there was another dealer to bring it
You
to.
could,
so.
you could ask another dealer, we understand this to be the problem, what would you?
Well, you know what the problem was.
But you do
Until
now.
they took it
You do now,
apart.
yeah, then they have to put it back together again, bring it to somebody else, they take it apart again, they're gonna charge us for it.
But you don't need to have them take it apart again. You can say, we think the problem is X, what would the cost be?
Right.
Jason, they have to pull the motor apart to see what's
Because
wrong.
they're not
I
gonna
own
give you a
trucks,
quote,
I
they're
know
not
what
gonna
they
give you a quote
do.
until they see the problem. So, usually we go for 3 quotes, we buy hose, we buy tires, or we go state bid. But this is, you know, this is what we've been using, this is
When did it break?
Friday.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Good
thank
enough.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, communications. Is there any communications? I have none. Okay, hearing no communications, I'll move on to board and commission resignations and appointments. I would move that we accept the resignation of Catherine Druin from the Elderly Commission.
With regret?
With regret. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. New appointments. I would move we appoint Glenn Reichley, a Republican, to the Agricultural Commission as a regular member for a term expiring 2/15/2019.
I'll second that.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah. I'm going to ask the same question I've asked before. Have we talked to the chairman of that commission? Should they have a vote?
I would say yes, they should. I should have talked to him, and I did not.
But, and I don't want to hold this one up because
Yeah.
I think Mr. Reichley has great credentials for, he's been a farmer here and has great credentials for it, but I really think that the chairman of a committee or a commission should have the opportunity to look at the resume of the person and say he or she will fit or will not, and we should listen to that.
I agree with you. I apologize.
Okay, we'll put another thing here. Bill Simon is on there,
Is he?
right? He's on that
Oh.
commission, right?
No,
He's not?
he's not.
Oh, I thought he was.
He's on the finance board.
Pardon?
Apparently on the finance board, you can't be on those other commissions.
Oh, I thought he was on there. Okay, excuse me.
I'm on the ag, if I could put my 2 cents in.
Please do.
Mr. Reichley attended several meetings with obvious interest. We wholeheartedly accepted him. And I can't speak personally for Mr. Grant, but I know it's a definite vouch for a great farmer in this town and be a great asset to the Ag Commission.
That's good information. Thank you.
Good enough for me.
Further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I would move we appoint Robert Slate as a citation hearing officer for a term expiring February 14th, 2020. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
What does a citation hearing officer do?
What he does is when we have a zoning enforcement problem and we send the person a citation and say, you have to fix this, and there's a whole procedure that it goes through. But at the end, we start finding them up to $150 a day, and if nothing occurs, then it's taken to court. And the hearing officer then gets involved, and he can reduce the amount of the fine if he wants. He listens to the problem and makes a decision. So if we were going to take a person who violated zoning or blight, our ordinance, or the regulations to court, before they would go to court, they would have to go to a hearing officer, and the hearing officer would kind of usher the case from then on.
Is that the same person that does like parking tickets as well?
No, this is a very, in fact, I think in the packet, I think the ordinance is in there that requires a zoning officer.
Okay.
Cliff Nelson was our last one.
So
Cliff Nelson was our last hearing officer.
are all citations zoning violation citations? So this is specifically for zoning violations?
Zoning and blight.
So this is the person who would have handled things like the Market Drive situation?
No.
Had somebody.
No, only if there were fines imposed.
And there were no fines imposed?
There were no fines imposed.
And who determines whether or not fines are imposed?
The Planning and Zoning Department.
So the ordinance that you gave us, the body of it reads that this is to establish procedure for the zoning enforcement officer to issue citations for violations, to establish procedures for fines, and to establish procedure for contesting liability before a hearing officer. So who's the zoning enforcement officer?
That would be Matt.
And Matt's the person who's responsible for issuing citations?
Yes.
And how, I'd be curious to have a conversation about that. It shall be $150, not up to. So it is $150 per day no matter what. When's the last time we actually issued a citation?
It was before my, a citation?
Right here, Jason. Right
Oh,
here.
That wasn't set up.
That's how I know Cliff Nelson was our man to talk to.
That was not intentional, Steve.
Yeah, it was. How are you
Get
kidding?
somebody new to report to.
But actually, we did, in the Margaret Drive, we did put out a citation. So we did give Margaret Drive a citation, but when we give out a citation, that means they have 30 days to fix it. And you have to list specifically what needs to be fixed, and the person in question fixed it. So he wasn't fined $150 a day.
Is it the hearing officer who determines that the situation has been remedied, or is it the zoning enforcement?
Zoning enforcement. Hearing officer only takes over if once the, well, it outlines it here. If any person who requests a hearing shall be given written notice of the date and time and place of the hearing. Such a hearing shall be held not less than 15 days nor more than 30 days from the date of the mailing of the notice. And then if you look down at H, it says, if such an assessment is not paid on the date of its entry, the hearing officer shall send by first-class mail a notice of assessment to the person found liable and shall file not less than 30 days nor more than 12 months after such a filing, a certified copy of the notice of assessment with the clerk of the Superior Court. So once the fine is starting to be enforced, once we're trying to collect the fine, the hearing officer comes into play.
So in that circumstance, once somebody is more than 30, but not more than 365 days delinquent in paying the citation, if that notice is sent to the property owner, but isn't filed with the court, is there a means by which it can be pulled back?
When you go in front of the hearing officer, he sits here and he listens to your case.
Mhm.
Usually the zoning department, somebody from there is sitting there, okay?
Probably making the case against you at that point.
So he listens to what you got to say, he listens to what the other person's got to say, and it's up to him what he wants to hit you with, okay?
Right, and then,
And
but he
that's
has,
it, that's the end of it right there.
he has a month to a year to file that with the court. But I'm wondering, because that is such a broad window.
No, when he makes his decision, okay? Say if you owed 100,000,
The
he thought
hearing
you were,
officer,
you know, not really, you shouldn't have to pay that, he could say, okay, $2,000, just like that. He can make a decision, that ends it right then and there, and you have so many days to pay it. That's how it worked.
Right, but didn't Bob read something about the recording with the Superior Court? That's what I'm.
Look, I'm telling you what happened to me firsthand in this room.
Yeah, I'm not interested in a specific, for instance, I'm interested in the overall policy. So when a hearing officer has a year to file something with the court after notifying somebody who's been found in violation of the ordinance, in that period of time, in between the decision being issued by the hearing officer and the potential year elapsing when that gets filed with the court, if there is a remedy arrived at, is there an opportunity for the hearing officer to rescind that, or is there?
Yes, I
is
think
there not?
that's why it's a year. When he determines that the person is not going to pay and not going to correct the situation, and then he has the ability to take it to the court.
Bob,
That's my understanding.
When a person has exceeded the time limit and the fines are being exacted on a daily basis, does the officer have the opportunity, the authority to say, well, he did fix it in 45 days, so those 15 days of fines will go away, or are they forever?
The hearing officer can reduce the fines. I think after hearing he knows what the total of fines because of the days just times the $150, but then he can say, well, I believe that a fair fine would be so much and try to work something out.
All right, so the officer can in fact reduce the fine.
Yes. Yeah.
A judgment call on his part.
Yes, it is.
See, he's the boss at that point.
Okay.
Where does it say that?
Maybe it doesn't say that, but
Because it
That's
says
my-
specifically that the citation shall be $150 per day. Right, but, so I don't understand, I don't see, and I'd be happy to be corrected, I don't see where the discretion is.
well, in an earlier meeting, I suggested we have a lawyer read this and make a checklist of all the things we have to do to get it into the court if it's necessary to go there. And by reading the ordinance, he'll make sure that we have all our ducks in a row, so to speak.
I'm not saying that that's a duck that needs to be in the row. I'm not saying that discretion necessarily needs to be here. I'm just saying I don't think that the interpretation is correct.
So you're
Okay,
saying if a person got fined $150 a day, that's what they should have to pay regardless?
Yeah.
What you're saying?
Yeah, because,
Then there's no need for a hearing officer.
fair point. Well, no, that's not true, because the citation might have been imposed improperly.
He sits there and he listens to your case.
Right.
He determines whether or not you were fairly charged. He's sitting there almost like a judge, basically, okay?
I understand how
Like a judge.
administrative hearings work. My point is, I don't know that there needs, I think your point is well taken, that maybe there doesn't need to be a hearing officer.
The ordinance requires a hearing officer, so we can't enforce zoning or blight if we don't have a hearing officer.
And I think there should be a hearing officer, because I do think, my opinion, that some people are charged unfairly. Okay? So this is what, maybe you can say he's a check in the system, one of the checks and balances.
It sounds
This
like,
ordinance doesn't speak, I'm sorry, Andy. This ordinance doesn't speak to blight.
That's correct.
But you could still,
Do we have a
still be
blight
fined
ordinance?
for it.
Not a very good one. I don't think we do have an adequate blight ordinance.
So what role does a hearing officer play in enforcing blight if we don't have an ordinance?
None at the moment, but he could do both.
Oh.
Is there any further discussion?
does that mean that we have to take some action to rework the governing document, or
Of the blight, yes.
what? And who would do that?
We're the policymakers.
Hmm?
It's supposed to be this board.
Okay.
And then the enforcement person would be what, the building department? You know, Rand was,
It's true, I don't think we have a blight enforcement person officer at this point, but the building department would be the one to do it.
When should we be prepared to amend the document, fix the document? A month?
It might be to create it. It might not even be in the broken stage. It might not even actually exist.
I have no time frame for that. I think we have a major problem with Eagle at this time, and I think I would like a lawyer to be involved in the writing of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So further discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Opposed?
No?
Okay, the motion carries. Robert Slate's our citation hearing officer. Now, unfinished business, 2005, 250th anniversary. Jumping ahead.
Before you keep going, I keep getting texts. That camera isn't washed, it's not even facing you guys, and it's not even on. So,
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if it's fixable or whatever, but people are texting saying they can't even see you guys.
hey, Jason.
I'd say there's a problem with the camera.
But yeah,
You can see it on the screen too.
Yes.
Seems to be only one on the screen, and that's facing you, so
Yeah,
smile.
that one, they can't see you.
with him.
It's facing down and not
You
up.
should make that
I
clear.
agree.
You should make
I
that,
would have to vote to slate
you should make that
back up just a little bit,
Sure.
please.
Oh, okay.
On the Bob Slate thing,
Yeah.
Yes.
I was a no.
Okay,
I was gonna say,
Okay.
the answer is yes. Was-
Jason was a no.
yes. Then I'll break it with a yes.
Okay.
Good? Okay, so as you may have seen, there's a rock on the table that has our ribbon logo on it. These rocks are for sale in the town clerk's office for $10. They just got them
last week. So I think only 1 or 2 have been sold so far. But now that I know they're in the system, it'll go on Facebook to let them know that they are available. Hopefully this weekend I can get them to the Broderick Library and the Warehouse Point Library as well. So they'll be on sale everywhere with all of our other merchandise. Some of our upcoming events, next Saturday is the Kids Winterfest, which will be at the Scout Hall from 1 to 4, with kids activities like crafts and cookie decorating and rock painting, and depending on the weather, hopefully we'll get our sleigh rides from Mr. Strumpford with the horses. And
You said that's next Saturday?
correct, the 24th, from 1 to 4 o'clock.
I think he was planning on a wagon, but we didn't think there would be any snow.
Yeah, so it totally depends on the weather for kind of what he brings. So we're hoping for nice weather of some kind, so he can bring something for us. And
Scout Hall?
yeah. And then on March 21st, a Wednesday, is our vintage tea party at the senior center. I believe there are about 100 seats that are available to the general public. Just let them know that you want to attend, so they have enough chairs out and everything set up, and that we have enough teacups for everybody. The vintage lady will be putting on a fashion show of some kind, so that'll be exciting. And then coffee and tea will be served as well. That is from 12:30 to 2 o'clock, roughly 2:30. They had to adjust the shuttle schedule slightly for that. And then I just want to thank some of our sponsors that we got.
Can I ask a question for you?
Yeah,
What does that mean, vintage tea party? What is
old
that?
times.
Okay.
I don't remember what era it's from, but it's from
Okay.
Old timey?
old times.
So that means the people that attend wear,
No, people who
Vintage
attend are just coming to
costumes.
see. People
Okay.
attend are just coming to see it, and she puts on the show herself. You don't have to dress up or anything.
They don't have to be as old as I am.
Anyone can go to the senior center and enjoy
Okay.
the
Okay,
vintage
good.
tea party. But yeah, so some of our sponsors, we had the East Windsor PTO make a sponsor for our Kids Winter, not Kids Winter Fest, our Sunday Fun Day event, which is a joint event with Melissa Park and Rec, to have a Balloon Animal company come and a face painting company, so that was a great donation. For the Winterfest, we are going to get donuts given to us through MassCon. They're going to supply the donuts for us that day. So those are some of our most recent sponsors. And hopefully some other ones to come. We have the Windsor Federal Savings Bank is donating to our baseball game. And the Rotary Club is doing popcorn at the baseball game. That's all I can think of right now. So donations and sponsors are coming in for our event, so it's great.
did you have the thing at the old Walmart yet?
The home show is March 10th and 11th, so it's still 2 weeks away.
Okay. Are you going to be selling those there?
There will be some there to sell, yeah,
Okay.
with all of our other merchandise, and we'll have flyers for upcoming events
Okay,
that we
great.
have made up so far, as well as our parade, sign up if you want to be in the parade for any organization, and other things like that. So
Okay, good.
we'll have a full table there for
Who's
us.
painting the rocks?
Lynn Tracy Thim, she's painted all of our rocks, including the little decorative ones that have dinosaurs on them, that have any kind of other design on them. She's taken the time and painted them, and they came out great. So she's awesome at what she does. So these are on sale for $10. I'll leave this one up here for now, but
Okay,
anything else?
that's good.
Cool.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Therefore,
Paul?
I want to point out, there's only 25 of those rocks.
Thank you.
Times the $10 is $250. That's the purpose. And rock number 1 will be going in the time capsule.
Yes.
Is that rock number 1?
No, I have after that one.
It's
In
put
a
away
box.
to
That's
go
saving
into the
for all my
time
time capsule
capsule.
stuff.
Is that rock number 2?
No, this is 3.
Are they numbered?
Yeah, they're all
Yeah,
numbered.
they're all
back.
numbered.
So
So
those seem
this
to be
is-
worth tens of thousands in 1,000 years from now.
That's from Wentzville, it will be.
I'll take that.
What was your question, Evie?
Oh, I had a cousin that passed away recently, and she had an album of the 200th celebration. I'd like to give it to you. I meant to bring it.
Okay, I just got one from Dale 2 weeks ago, whenever the last meeting was. She had given me something too,
They're
so.
probably 10, 15, 20 photographs.
Yeah, I can
They're-
take a look
they're-
at 'em.
They're small, but they are pretty clear.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd also like to point out that the Love Your Library scavenger hunt, which is part of the 250th celebration, is doing very well.
Good.
And that ends up on the 28th. So it's the month of February, running out of time for those that want to participate.
And the drawing is March 3rd?
And yeah, I don't know how we're going to do that, but on Wednesday, the 28th, it ends. And on Saturday, the 3rd, we do the drawing of all the potential winners.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the casino, and we have a new ordinance, the latest version, and I thank Andy for working on it. I think this is pretty close to final. So if anybody wants to make any changes, including Andy, because I reworked one sentence a little bit, make them and we'll bring them to the next meeting. But I think now we can start to talk about when we're going to present it to a town meeting.
What did you change, Bob?
I didn't really change any of the meaning. I just reworded the sentence. I put some words that were at the beginning, at the end, and some at the end to the beginning.
Can I say a few words?
Sure.
I gave this a lot of thought. I believe it should be simple. It should be something that's very understandable when we go to the town meeting. I have broadened it over what we had before, one of the versions that limited the funding to the police department, fire department, and education. The reason I did that, and there's some rationale for it, is that there are going to be other needs, and I don't know how you fund it, that are directly related to the casino. Like, for example, if the building department needs some help for whatever, where do we get the money? It should come out of the impact fund. If the planning office needs some expertise or consulting or additional manpower, if it's because of the casino, it should come out of this fund. For example, another example is senior services, kind of a subtle one, but when we go to the casino, most of the people are pretty old and gray down there playing, and I kind of wonder whether the fact that we have a casino in town might add additional senior housing. And if that's the case, we might have to provide something for them. And I realize that the town has buses that they run people around, and it might need another one, for example, maybe. But that's the kind of thinking that went into it. Public Works, for example, might need to do something. And what crossed through my mind was, if the traffic is bad, we may have to broaden South Street to make it an easy access coming across the bridge, an easier access coming across the bridge and onto Route 5 than trying to go up the hill. That would be on us. It's a town road. Another thing that I think is quite likely someplace along the line, I'll bet you that Water Pollution Control Authority, I'll bet you they're going to have to do something with that facility because of this new pretty substantial load. If they do, then the money for that should certainly come out of the impact fund. It should not come from other sources in town, because it wouldn't have happened unless the casino caused it. So that's the kind of thinking that that I went through, trying to put some words in that I thought would satisfy all of us here on the board, and satisfy the public, and is understandable so that when we go to the public, we can say what we're creating here is a checkbook. And you really should have a checkbook before you start writing checks. And that's what we're trying to do here. So that's kind of my rationale for the way I created it. And one of the things you'll note, and it's something that Steve brought up, and I think it's a good point. And that is, if we run excessive funds, and we may someday, it's not, I would never say in the first couple of payments that we should siphon money off, because we don't know where we're headed or what it's going to cause. But at some point in time, if we're running a surplus, you know, like $3 million or even greater at some point in time, as a judgment call, that money should go into the general fund for stabilization of taxes. And I don't know whether it means $10 or $100 to the taxpayer, but when it goes in there, we should tell the world that it's gone in there for that reason, so that people will recognize that the casino is not only a recreational facility that's good for the town, but they're getting some good out of it. So that's kind of my thinking behind what is written here.
Okay, sounds good. Steve?
Okay. I've complained that we had different organizations listed in this thing, okay? And I was totally against that. It's been taken out. It says here, for impacts created by the casino, growth of East Windsor infrastructure and public services, but it doesn't name different organizations, which is good. I'm for that, okay? Monies deemed in excess shall be transferred to the general fund for the purpose of stabilizing taxes. Okay, well, I've been right along for leveling the tax rate with this money, and we can do that. 2% of our budget's only $800,000. We go a lot of years just keeping the tax flat. And once it gets out that we're doing that, it's gonna bring business to town, because when they come in and they build, say if they get taxed $600,000, they can stay that way for a long time. You want economic development? There it is. We gotta publicize this.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, monies deemed in excess shall be transferred. I don't want this fund to get blown out of proportion. I think $3 million's a lot of money. But when you got it in here for infrastructure, okay, that means a lot of that money could go to the highway department for fixing roads and everything else. So I will agree to the $3 million only. And I wrote down here, monies deemed in excess of $3 million. I don't want to see 6 or 9 million sitting there. I don't want it, no. I would agree to $3 million, the first payment. If we don't use any of it, then we get the next $3 million, now we got 6. That $3 million goes into the general fund to start keeping the taxes at a level playing field here, okay? I mean, if we're talking $800,000 on 2%, you know, on our budget, we can go a lot of years on $3 million and not raising taxes in this town. Plus all the businesses that are gonna fly here, they're gonna be paying taxes. I mean, we've got a win-win situation here. And, like I said here, I wrote down, no more than $3 million shall be in the CIF fund, well, CIF, at one time. So anything over $3 million goes into the general fund, you know? $3 million is a lot of money.
Steve,
And if you do need police guys, you know how many guys you can hire with that kind of money, all right? If you need to help to do something with the fire department down there, but God almighty, that's a lot of money. We don't need more than $3 million in that fund at one time. So I would go with this if it's only $3 million. Anything we don't spend over that, if we spend $1 million, we get the next 3, we bring the fund back up to $3 million, the other 2 go into the town coffers here, you know? And like I said, the fact that it didn't specify any special groups that was gonna get this money, I am for that too, and I would vote for this, you know, if we put a cap on the amount of money that will sit in that fund.
Steve, could I have you consider one thing? At the beginning, you see, the the words that are there, and not the ones you added, but the words that are there, that doesn't preclude what you're saying. It's a call on the part of someone, I don't know if it's a board or who, to start to transfer that money. I don't think it needs to have the verbiage you just put in. If you don't put that in, and if for some reason or other in the first several years we need a bunch of money, it will be available to us without having to wait for the next $3 million payment. So I think you get what you want, even if you don't put that thing in there, because it's a judgment call for what the board or someone will have the authority to say, we got $4 million in there, let's move, and we don't see any reason for having any more than 2. You can move that money at that point in
Yeah,
time.
but then we gotta come back to meetings, and we've got to argue about it again.
Well, I don't know, do we have to? Is that not something that we can have, if we put it in there, isn't that something that the board or some designated group can move that money without going to a town meeting?
Well, I don't think this purposely doesn't say how the money is going to be allocated. It says all we're really trying to do is establish a separate fund to put this money in. I think in the future, I think it's important that now we do that. Establish the fund to put the money in. And say when we get the $3 million, it's going into this fund. Now, how that money gets distributed, we're going to have to come up with either another ordinance to do that or change this ordinance to include, if that's what we want to include, is a $3 million cap or a $5 million cap, we can do that. But I think I think we should keep a fairly simple ordinance like this just to establish the fund, and I think we should bring it for a town meeting now or soon, and then once we get the $3 million, then we can put it into that fund, and then we still have time to figure out how to distribute that money, and I think it will become pretty clear when you got
The different groups who say they need money because of the impact, they would have to come here before us and sit there and say, we've had this issue, this issue, this issue, and we need some money to do this.
I think
hire another guy or something, whatever it may be, and then we would sit here and make a judgment call whether we really feel that they're entitled to any of this money based on the evidence that they would give us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
And maybe eventually it would go to a town meeting to vote.
Well, I can still say that, we still have the town meeting, and then people come in, and they're usually pretty generous. They don't usually turn things down because they're pretty logical people around here, and they say, okay, they really need this. It's always been a yes.
So I personally would go with this, and that's so. But now, if we do vote to go with this, the question that I'd like to start considering is when are we going to take this to town meeting? Any thoughts?
After a ordinance is adopted by the board, is there a time limit as to when we have to do it? I'd like to get this step done.
Okay.
Is there then say that 10 days after we approve this, we must go to the?
No, I don't think there's any time limit.
We've got a busy section of time coming up right now with budgets. I would like not to dilute that time with taking this to the town.
Okay. That's just what I was looking for, just feedback, just like that.
And I would like to have the town folks understand this. And I don't know exactly how to do that either.
Okay.
But the simpler, the better.
Yeah.
You can guarantee that the folks with the black signs, the folks with crew review or whatever they're called, will misrepresent this to people. No matter what this says, the words on the page will not be represented by the message that's out there. That will not happen.
Why do you think?
Who's going to put the message out there,
Because they've been doing it for 20 years. Because they've been doing it for 20 years. They've been intentionally misrepresenting information that should be easily understandable by the public for 20 years. And it's done to advance an agenda, and that is going to be done to advance whatever agenda they see in this, not whatever agenda the board sees.
Excuse
But
me. he can
Jason,
talk
if we
about
make
his
it more
agenda.
complex,
I don't want to make it more complex.
it's more open to subjective interpretation.
Yeah.
So I would like not to do that.
So let me, we're going to talk about subjectivity. Tell me what a positive impact is. What's a positive impact?
Well,
Define it.
I will define a positive impact. Impact, I don't think we're trying to define. We're not trying to define impact, we're trying to define positive, because that's correct. So we're trying to define positive, is that right?
Well, yeah, I want to know what, so in number 2, it says, in pertinent part, be expended to ensure the casino has a positive impact on the town of East Windsor. That sounds great. That sounds very motherhood and apple pie. What does positive impact mean? Whose determination is that?
Well, because I like that. I would, originally it said to mitigate negative impacts. Now, what's a negative impact? It's the same thing. In a sense, if the casino's going to have a positive impact, you have to eliminate all the negative impacts. That it's just like, you know, you tell a doctor to do no harm. So first thing you'd have to do is eliminate. Identify negative impacts, eliminate it. Okay, now you've eliminated all the negative impacts. Does the casino have a positive impact? Well, no, but it doesn't have a negative impact. Well, if there's money left over that we can use to, just what it says here, first to help the casino, and I guess in its operation, to grow East Windsor, to improve the infrastructure, to improve public services, that's a positive impact.
So is it limited to that?
No, it's limited. It's saying that we can do more than just mitigate negative impacts. We don't have to limit ourselves to negative impacts. It's just that's all it's saying.
May I take a shot at a
Sure.
couple of examples? If the town were to grow, and if we were to grow so that there were more senior citizens in town, could the senior center handle that today? A positive impact would be, if that can't happen, and the senior facility has some drawbacks right now, getting into it, either by ramp or steps. Maybe we could build a new one. That's a positive impact for older people. Just plain build a brand new facility, you know, up at the Coca lot up there. That's positive. If in fact, one of the examples I used before, if the traffic becomes bad going up the hill into the casino, we might want to take and set up some kind of a road to service people coming across the bridge to widen the South Road.
There's state roads, you can't do that. That's a
State road, yeah.
South Road is a state road?
South Main Street?
No.
South Road?
South
South Water Street.
South River Road, is that?
South Water Street.
Water Street, Andy.
That's a town road, yeah. We may want to take and divert traffic,
By a house.
you know, onto Route 5, south of the casino. That would be a positive impact. You know, if we think about it, I believe we can think about the good that will come out of something like this. And there has to be someone, it may be the board, it may be some kind of a group of people that are, it may be someday a town manager, for all I know. But to have the money available to do good things, I think is really, really important. And there must be enough smart people in our town to decide what is good and what should come out of this thing. It just seems to me like a winner.
I understand.
Not because I wrote it, but I think it'll,
Well,
no pride, no authorship.
You certainly edited it, but there is a fair amount of subjectivity here. And that is not a good thing when you're writing ordinance or statute or any type of, it's just not good to be
And lots of times, that being specific isn't good either, because now you're confined to only doing that.
So who makes the determination about whether something has a positive impact or a negative impact or just an impact?
The
I
board.
guess we would.
But it doesn't say that. So where does the board have that power?
It may not be the board forever. It may be a town manager at some point.
But that's what I'm saying about that. There's, you know, the rest of the story that isn't told yet.
And to put the money away into a checking account, I don't have to decide whether it's, if the checking account says Pat and Andy Hoffman or Andy Hoffman or Pat Hoffman. I would much rather say Pat Hoffman, she's better with money.
But you're able to make that decision.
Huh?
But you're able to make that decision.
Yeah, and in the fact that it's, we still have the flexibility of doing that. And I don't think we have to specify it here.
Who, is it the Board of Finance who does?
Hmm?
Is it the Board of Finance who has that flexibility? Because they're the ones who determine transfers of funds.
Jason, we do have to finish the meeting sometime today, and maybe we should put a time limit on the meeting. We can debate this for days if we choose. So I think we should either postpone it to...
I'd like to comment.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Now, positive impacts, I hope, anticipate that this casino flies like a lot of people think it's going to fly, including myself. You know, that East Windsor will become a destination town, that we have a park over here. You know, people that go to the casino, you know, a lot of them will have families. Maybe they'll decide in the summer that, well, maybe we'll go over to the park. They'll go swimming. They're going to do what they want. We have a trolley museum. That could be a boost for them. That's a positive impact. We have the museum, right? And that could be a positive impact for them. You know, we start charging admission. Trolley museum, you know, the expenses could rise some if you have to have police officers there because we have so much traffic. It's so close to where the casino is going to be. The other things, you know, things that we don't know. You know, the sewer plant, I know there was one comment, you know, they got capacity, but, you know, that's still an awful lot of flow. But one thing, they said, you know, we got to get some kind of a machine that's going to sort out the swizzle sticks. That was an issue in the other place. And, you know, I don't know if that's $10 or $100,000, you
It
know?
won't matter. It's gonna be done on site. We're not doing it.
Oh, okay,
They have to pay for it, they have to do it.
okay.
But I don't
it's
think
still-
we, go ahead, Charlie.
But it's still, you know, things that we don't really know yet. And we probably won't know more of it, and really the greatest part of it, till we complete year 2 that casino is open. That's my feeling with that. So we need somewhere to store this money. We need to have this to be available to a lot of different people, because it may have that positive impact, may have some negative impact. Highway department, we haven't considered anything. We just need to have this rounded up at the moment, and then when it comes time where the need is there, it's either the board will decide or selectmen decide on, you know, what that distribution is going to be, or someone will. That'll be figured out. But right now, I want to have this ordinance voted on and passed and bring it to town vote. And I think this is exactly what we need, because it's, again, we've got to move on this. We can keep studying this.
We've been at it for 2.5 months, and we really shouldn't be at it 2.5 months. You know, it isn't rocket science. It really isn't. I would like to do one thing, though.
Okay.
I don't want to make it confusing, but I got a call from one of the residents in town, and they had a good point. They said, you know, after it says, you know, operation, the growth of East Windsor, after growth, say, and quality of life.
Okay.
We had that in there one time, and it got dropped off, and really that's kind of significant, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing. And it kind of goes to what Charlie was saying. Maybe we will enhance our town park system. You know, maybe as part of this someday, if the mill is saved, and I'm not sure that's going to ever happen. You know, we're in the middle of that, or in the beginning of that road. Maybe we would add something to the mill complex down there that would bring people into the center of Broadbrook. Add some boutiques. Laurie had a little amphitheater, which I think was all pretty much grass, but that's fine, because there are a lot of grass amphitheaters around that work just fine. And having, years ago, we used to have where the Easy Living apartments are, there was a hotel, which was a pretty good hotel. And there was a nice driveway with maple trees on either side of it. The front lawn was really quite nice, where the parking lot is, with a very nice sloping. They used to put up a bandstand there every summer. And every single weekend for about a dozen weekends, or maybe 6 or 8, they used to have a get-together, kind of thrown together German band that came down and played there, all town residents. I don't think they got paid a nickel, but people used to go down there in droves. You had to get a parking spot early. My dad used to go down there and back his car in, but he got there for a 7 o'clock band concert. He got there at 6:30 or something like that, or 6 o'clock. So good things can happen coming out of this. This is, Steve keeps on saying it, this is a bonanza for us, and it really truly is. But you have to be able to manage the bag of gold.
Okay, so now you mentioned something about the quality of life. And you know something, I believe that should go in there somewhere, because when you start talking about the quality of life for the people of East Windsor, that could be hundreds of things we could spend that money on for the taxpayers here. That's a good thing to put in there.
Yeah. We had it here one time, Steve.
It's not just for parks, but it could be for everything.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things.
People that live on, that's on South Water Street, they were concerned about the casino. Rightly so, as close as they are, there'd be tons of traffic. We might have to do something there on that street.
Yeah, but the South Water Street's a major throughway
I'm just telling you.
during rush hours, in the morning and at night.
But people that live there, were saying that they have a big concern about the casino coming in. So we might have to do something there to make their quality of life, acceptable. I don't know what that is.
So they come here in front of us and they present their case, and we listen to them, and we decide whether it's legit. If it is, then we use this money to help take care of it. So quality of life, I like that, because it can cover a lot of stuff for a lot of people in the town of East Windsor.
We must be flexible. Do you object to putting that in?
Oh, not at all. I would say I'm ready to vote to accept this.
I am too.
Has this been reviewed?
No.
Has to be per charter.
Could you tell me where in the charter it says that? Yeah, we could say pending the review. Now, I wouldn't mind that at all.
Yeah, that's certainly a good thing.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to accept this ordinance as it is written, pending the review of an attorney.
With the addition of quality of life.
With the addition of quality of life that comes right after the growth of East Windsor.
Right.
So let's make that, you want somebody to make that
I'll
motion?
make that motion.
All right, well, but I'll write it down then.
Okay.
So,
I'd like to have a $3 million cap on it.
no, we're not gonna fly with that tonight. I'm not gonna-
All right, then I gotta vote no, I'm sorry, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta vote no on that.
Right.
I like everything else, I'll run with it, but you gotta stop the pot somewhere.
That can be done, Steve, by the people who are managing it. You don't have to have it in there. I think for the beginning, you should have all the money available to make improvements on town infrastructure, buildings, whatever is a positive impact.
I'm for all of that.
I know you are.
But you know something? I don't believe there's gonna be an impact like everybody thinks.
You're
Don't believe it.
You're absolutely right. And at that point in time, then I think even without what you're asking for, it can be decided that you don't need 3 million in there, you don't need 6 million in there. What you need is to have 2 million in there, because we can handle that every single year with $2 million. But I think right now, at the beginning of the road, where we don't know what is in front of us, we should leave that number out. I really do.
I mean, I like having the money in there because I've seen the finance board chop and dice and everything else to people who need the money. We have the money in there and we can sit up here and use it for the good of the town, people. I'm for that.
I really
I feel like I'm in front of a firing
No,
squad.
not at all. Your opinions are important.
Yeah.
It's just that I really do believe that that cap is not necessary. I think that that's part of managing it. You know, it's, you don't put a cap on your checkbook. You manage that by expeditiously using the money.
You know, when I put up all those signs to have people come and vote yes for this casino, we've got people there, got them to show up, vote. I promised these people when I spoke that they were gonna get some tax breaks.
And they should.
And they were, you know, I mean, not by lowering taxes, but we've got enough money where we can, if you're paying $4,800 a year for your house right now, that could go on for a lot of years.
I agree.
Okay, without raising that tax.
Yep. This does not at all.
And I feel like I'm gonna be lying to the people here that voted me into this seat.
Well, let me say,
And I'm not a liar, man.
I know, but creating this fund is the exact way to level those taxes. It can't be leveled without creating this fund. If the money goes right into the general fund, we lose all the ability to mitigate it or handle the impact of this.
Yeah, but where's that money gonna go?
Well,
That's what everybody says it's gonna disappear like the state. They get all that money and they blow, where's our money gonna go?
We
Really?
decide.
We have a
We decide.
2% here, and I'm glad we have it because it keeps everything under control, okay?
Well, if we have it in here until, you know,
Where's it gonna go?
we get, you have to
To
set
tax,
up,
to tax stabilization.
yeah.
you have to set up a separate account from the general fund, like South Windsor did,
Exactly.
for tax stabilization. That's what you have to do. So it won't go anywhere but in that account.
For the purpose of stabilizing
Yeah.
taxes, that's what it would be for.
Otherwise, it will go away.
Yeah, when you say it goes away, where is it going to go?
Oh, well, now, well,
When you say that, make
General
that,
it depends on what you're talking about. Where is it? In other words,
actually what we're doing is we're building up our bank account. That's what would be happening.
well, there's the general
Let
fund,
that happen.
yeah, and there's, what
And
we
then
want to
when-
do is create
And
a,
then when Paul comes in and wants a measly 10,000 for his library, you know, maybe the finance board will finally give it up and give the man some money. I mean, we're cheap in this town. It's gotta stop.
that's true, but we really need to create this fund. And
So, okay, so now we got 3, then we get 6. When's it gonna stop?
It's gonna stop, Steve, when we understand what the annual need is, and at that point in time, we transfer surplus money into the general fund with a specific
All right,
purpose.
so what are we gonna do? Wait for 6 months after it opens to make this determination?
Probably.
or maybe after we get the $3 million, then we might start thinking pretty hard.
Yeah, but they won't be open then, so we won't know if there's gonna be any problems yet at that point.
You're right, Steve.
Okay?
Well, we could establish the
So it'll
fund.
probably take them, I don't know, probably a couple of years to get open,
Yeah,
all right? We're gonna get the first payment, what, 18 months prior to them opening,
15 months, yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So
But the day they open, Steve, we should be prepared to be their partner. And you're a big advocate.
We are a partner with them guys.
You're right. So I don't think we should limit our ability to be their best partner.
So
don't
say
wanna
if
have
we
them
go up to 6 million, and then we're gonna sit and we're gonna review this 6 months after they're open, to see if all that money needs to sit there.
Yes.
Unless we're using it up for the quality of life for the people in town, or the infrastructure, you know, roads and stuff that the town garage, the highway department would have to spend money on.
Yeah, that'll take a little time, but I don't think you want to run out of money.
We're not gonna run out of money.
You're absolutely right, Steve. It will take some time. It may be a year, it may be 2, but at that point in time, whoever is in office will have a better feel for what the needs are, and that money, you know, coming in could, instead of it staying in that pot at all, have no dwell time, you can say, you know, we've been averaging $2 million a year for,
I understand what you're saying.
and we send that $1 million immediately over to the tax stabilization.
So what do you wanna put in here? We wanna vote on this. I know you guys do. I do. I wanna get it done, but I want it to be right.
I want to leave it just the way it is.
So, I mean, yeah, but you don't wanna put a number in here?
No.
No,
So
not
Steve,
now.
Everybody agrees with number 1. There's quite a bit of contention over number 2. So why don't we just take number 2 out and leave number 1 in?
It doesn't say
Establish the
anything
fund.
there.
So can we put in here to be reviewed 6 months after opening? Can we put a line like that in there to see if we really need all that money sitting there? Something like that? I mean,
Well, no, we are going to have to add something to this, or create another ordinance to say how we're going to distribute this money. And probably what we'll end up with coming to, people will make requests to the Board of Selectmen, and just like our budget, then we'll give it to the Board of Finance, and then the town will vote on it. So that'll be a process, and
so the Board of Finance is gonna handle this money then?
I will see. We have to see what the town decides in their other ordinance.
What it would do right now would be yes. The answer is yes.
I don't think they should handle that money.
Unless the allocation ordinance says it's going to be dispensed some other way.
But Jason, to answer your question, to establish a separate fund, we have to not only say that we're going to establish it, we have to say its purpose.
But you know, what Steve said is not a bad idea. We could certainly say, in that line that talks about excess money, we could say in there that it'll be reviewed on an annual basis. Would that make you happier?
Yeah. I don't wanna see this pot get bigger and bigger and bigger. I want it spent.
All right, well, let's say
I want it
this.
spent on the people here,
Uh,
the town.
Let's add, monies will be reviewed on an annual basis, and monies deemed in excess shall be transferred to the general fund for the purpose of tax stabilization. And I would say, we have a meeting this Saturday for, although, we have a meeting this Saturday for budget workshop. We could add this to the agenda to approve at that time. So
Yeah,
let's,
but the problem is, I'm not
You
gonna
wanna
be here
approve it tonight?
Why
Saturday.
can't we approve it tonight?
okay.
Yeah, I'd
I
rather
think we
do it
should.
tonight while I'm sitting here, so my vote counts. 'Cause I think I told you, I'm gonna be in Pennsylvania on Saturday.
Okay.
You should stay here, Steve.
No, I've been waiting 2 months to go down there for what I'm going there for.
Okay. All right,
So, can you put that in to be reviewed?
okay.
All right? Annually, and
Does that make you smile?
I'll vote yes. Okay? I wanna be a yes man.
That's kind of a good feeling.
Okay, I'll,
What's it now say, Bob?
okay. The last two sentences say, the CIF shall ensure that issues associated with the casino are dealt with in a manner that supports its operation, the growth of East Windsor, the quality of life, infrastructure, and public safety. Monies will be reviewed annually, and money deemed in excess shall be transferred to the general fund for the purpose of tax stabilization. Okay.
Good enough.
I think that's fine.
Good enough.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to accept the ordinance with the changes to the last two sentences that I wrote, and I'll give Peg the ordinance, and to have it reviewed by an attorney. So I move to accept the authorization of the ordinance with the last two sentences changed as we agreed, and it be reviewed by an attorney.
I'll second that.
Second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Jason?
No.
Naturally.
Okay. And we'll discuss when we're going to have a town meeting to approve it, after we get the attorney's approval. And is there any more discussion about the casino?
I'll talk about it in Selectmen's report.
Okay. All right. So now, we move on to this young lady here, Audra Smeagol.
Well, now you can have some fun. You've done all your work. I hope you like Christmas, because I'm here to give you something. This is for the town and for the selectmen and for the citizens. For those of you who don't know my relationship to what I'm about to give you, I served for many years on the Historic Preservation Commission. I was chair.
Here in town.
Here in town. And over the course of that time, one of the things that I'm most proud of as an accomplishment is that we established a national historic register district, which, in looking at what was happening for the 250th anniversary of the town, one of the fascinating things for me, because I worked in historic preservation for the town, is that the buildings in the Melrose Historic District, which is the first National Register district in the town, are reflective of the history of the town. You can take a tour, which I laid out. You can take a tour from one end of the district to the other, and you can pass through the centuries with architecture and history of the town. And I think that it's a big asset of the town that we have so many beautiful historic buildings that tell the story of this town.
How many buildings are included, roughly?
In the historic district,
that are-
there are a total of about eight or 10. They don't just include buildings, by the way. A historic district has to be established by a connection. And the connection, which is also the connection for the town, was about agriculture. And Melrose is a big site of agriculture, and still is a big site of agriculture. And that connects all of these properties, and had to, otherwise the state board and the national register people in Washington and the Department of Interior would not have approved it. I am very proud of the citizenry in that section of town because they stepped up. And it was thanks to them that this district became possible. It was their money, their approval, their meeting, and their contribution of history, of their own personal histories. So what I'm going to give you now that can stay in the town hall in perpetuity are the 6 major sites. There are a couple of others that are also included, but are the 6 major historic sites in the district. These are photographs. These photographs were done by a professional photographer, and they were then produced, and I framed them, and you can hang them where you will or put them where you will. On a rotation, you can send them to the libraries. It's up to you what you choose to do with them. So I'm just going to let you, each one of you is going to have something.
Thank you.
I don't know, because now they're covered up, I don't know what's what, but I'll tell you when to open it. That's what. There's one more.
A question.
Yes.
Must the buildings be restored, or can an older, unrestored building meet the qualifications? Or must there be some kind of a fund in place, or must there be some amount of restoration accomplished before it meets the criteria?
No, the criteria is established on 2 prongs. First, the building has to have architectural significance, a historic architecture. So, on this one, this is the 1st century, if you like. This is the 18th century, 1700s, this building. Okay, and it's significant architecturally because it has 2 chimneys. And it has this display of windows and this pedimented doorway. What you have is the Melrose School. The Melrose School is significant architecturally because it's a Greek Revival building built in 1850. And it has those columns and the style that's typical of that period.
That building's in really fine shape.
Building is in really fine shape because the citizens of Melrose made a committee many, many years ago, and they cherish it and they take care of it. We have a preservation committee and we watch over it. And they deserve a lot of credit for what they do.
Where does the funding come from?
The
Keeping up to speed, up to date.
The funding, most of the funding comes from donations of Melrose citizens that were invested for the preservation of that building. The building included.
Are federal or state grants available to help do that?
Now they are. They are primarily because it is listed on the National Register. And it can only be listed on the National Register if it remains on its original site. Once you move a building, you destroy the option to draw down that money. And you can draw down money from the state as well, because when these buildings went on the National Register, they also went on the state register. Now the second prong of this has to do with the historic piece. The building has to be of historic significance. This particular house is the home of Captain Stiles. Captain Stiles worked in the Revolution. His brother was the first rector of Yale University. So this has tremendous significance in terms of the history of this town. Now, I understand that on the list that I saw, and I'm also aware of, that there is going to be a house tour or house, barn, garden tour related to the 250th anniversary. These brochures were also done by that professional photographer. And this gives you an overview of the district, this blue brochure. And it is a windshield tour that can be distributed to anybody at any time. They can take this brochure, they can drive down Melrose Road, and they can do their own tour. There's an architectural explanation, and there's a historic explanation for each one of these photographs, each one of these properties.
Are these buildings generally occupied?
They are.
Or are they open as kind of museums?
Well, they are all occupied.
They're all owned?
They're all owned by the owners, they're all lived in by the owners, and at least one of the owners is a 7th generation of the descendant, as a descendant of the foundress, and it was foundress, I emphasize that because that's unusual, of Melrose, Margaret Thompson. Each of these properties are somehow connected to land that Margaret Thompson obtained by grant through a minister who got it from the King of England in 1720. Now, my second brochure is a proposal, but it is a professionally done proposal. You asked about use as a museum. The William H. Thompson farmstead. Margaret Thompson is his great-great-great-great-grandmother. This is a proposal I would like to make to the town to utilize this piece of property. I'm the owner, so I can do this. To utilize this piece of property as a historic and educational site. I've been working with, corresponding with, I should say more accurately, with Historic New England. And Historic New England has several sites across New England. They informed me when I talked to them that they would assist me, and that if this became a full-fledged educational museum, the way I intended with my mother, they will assume responsibility for it upon my death and continue the programming.
This is a residence now?
This is my residence.
Oh, you live there?
Yes, and this is actually 2 residences. It is one unified piece of property which made it very attractive to Historic New England. If you look in this brochure, you'll see that there are 2 residences on this page. There's a brown bungalow residence and then the Greek Revival residence. The brown bungalow just turned 100 years old.
And that's located behind this one?
That is located adjacent to this one, on land that originally belonged to William H. Thompson. William H. Thompson sold his property to the Pease family, and John Burdett Pease was a dairyman. His sister, Seba, and his Seba Eleanor, her name was, she was a teacher here in that 9th District Schoolhouse right here, as well as in Hartford, as well as in Rockville.
That's the 9th District Schoolhouse?
That's the 9th District, this one right here, that's St.
That was an
Tavis.
ancillary building of the church.
No, we are very fortunate in this town to have 5 actual schoolhouses that are in existence.
The one they're gonna move, the one on Barber Hill.
Don't go there, should never have been moved, but yes.
It hasn't been moved yet, but that's what you all decided. I got upset about it. We could get money to restore that now.
No,
No?
because you moved it
It
from the
hasn't
site.
been moved yet.
As long as it stands on the site, and as long as it is restored on its original site,
Yeah.
it will draw down money both from the state and from the federal government, and can qualify to be on the state and federal register if we keep it where it is. If we move it, we lose all of that.
I think it's too late to do it.
It's too late.
You don't own it.
And it is unfortunate because we would have had 5 schoolhouses that stood on their
Yeah.
original sites, which was Farmington, the Farmington area has only, I think, 1 or 2 that, I think 1 that sits on its original site. Enfield has 3.
Where are the 4 or the 5 in town?
Melrose, this is ridiculous. The Melrose School.
Yes.
Well, the schoolhouse in Warehouse Point, that we built the modern school on the front of it, That's
Yeah.
district number
You're
4.
talking about the old brick part.
The brick part, correct, that's district number 4. Melrose is district number 7. This brick building here at St. Catherine's is district number 9. We
That was
have-
a schoolhouse at one time.
It was a
There.
schoolhouse,
This
absolutely.
little teeny,
This little teeny brick white building was a schoolhouse. And it sits on its original site. It's not used anymore that way. We also have, of course, the academy, which is on the National Register. And we do have another schoolhouse there in Scantic, but that's a residence, and it probably doesn't look like a schoolhouse.
Where is that one?
A little white schoolhouse. I think it's, I'm not exactly sure where it is, I think it's around the corner from the church and all that. You have to go this way. Let me see. Melrose, 9, 4, Academy. Oh, well, and we have the 12, District 12, but which is going to be moved, so it's not going to be on its original site.
Was there one on Reservoir Road? Reservoir Avenue? There's a building that's in extreme decay that's off in the woods over by the tobacco barns that I've always assumed was a point.
It's possible. It's possible. It's possible that there is one I've heard that there is another one somewhere that is in serious decline. So anyway, I've come before the town as a commissioner and not often gotten a lot of support. So I have chosen with this, I have no heirs. I have no, I'm the last of my line. This is an idea that I worked up with my mother. This will be, I want to do this to honor the Thompsons, who are longstanding residents of Melrose, the Peases, who are also longstanding residents of Melrose, and my family, who were very hardworking farm family also, and really provided me with a tremendous amount of opportunity in my life, and this would be my tribute to them. And I really think that history is about people. History is, all these buildings are lovely, and all the things that we have are lovely, but it's about the people. And this property has a very important story to tell. And some of the items that you see in the photographs are original to the property. They were there when we came there. So they either belonged to the Peases or to the Thompsons. Mr. Thompson had one son who died. Mr. Thompson was a selectman, a legislator, and a conscriptor for the Lincoln administration in the Civil War. Yeah, he wasn't popular because these big, huge barns that you see in this photograph were burned to the ground in 1864 by a group of vigilantes who were very angry with him for sending all their fathers, sons, uncles, brothers down south to be slaughtered by the South.
We won that war.
I don't know. But anyway, he was a very, he also is one of the founding elders of the Congregational Church in Broadway. And he built that church twice in his lifetime. Once when they established it, and once just before he died in early 1900.
what relationship did he have with the Thompson cider mill?
He is an ancestor because the Thompson cider mill, those Thompsons, Rachel, who's now deceased, and their parentage were direct descendants of Margaret, because Margaret's cabin stood in the back on the knoll, which is now part of Ellington, because of course, if you know the history of East Windsor, Ellington was part of East Windsor and then broke off and became its own entity. So that knoll is the site of Margaret Thompson's original cabin. That was her original business that she established in 1720, and they supposedly have the oldest cider press in the country inside that building.
We're going to have a question about that. Is the cider mill a candidate for getting on the
It is,
National
but
Register?
Rachel did not want to do it, and the property owners have to agree. And it was to her disadvantage, unfortunately, because now they could benefit from funding. But she does have a bicentennial barn, and she did request of our commission to assist her, which we did do, in getting funding to do the restoration on the bicentennial barn.
Because I can remember as a kid, my dad bringing a sack of apples and that big old wooden press thing that they had that rolled out with cables.
Right. I remember as a child going there and getting cider vinegar from my grandmother. That was in operation up until about maybe 50 years ago or so. Anyway, you also have a third item in your, I guess, fourth item, you could say, in your packet. I don't know what you know about East Windsor, but I'm an old teacher, and I came dressed as the school marm because I do volunteer, actually in Enfield, but I do volunteer as a 19th century school marm. And there was a Miss Tate who boarded with the Peases, and I did go once to the elementary school and do a presentation for the kids there about 19th century education. This is an invitation. I know all of you can't come because it'll be considered a meeting, so you'll have to decide who you want to send. This is an invitation to come to the William H. Thompson Farmstead so that you can see it firsthand, visit it, and enjoy it in honor of William H. Thompson, who was a selectman like you for many, many years, and also a tax collector, and also a conscriptor, and also a legislator.
Tax collector and conscriptor? Did this guy have any friends?
I don't know, but he did a good job.
He survived it all.
He survived it all into his 90s. Anyway, to come to a luncheon, and the luncheon is on May the 12th. Now, May the 12th happens to correspond to the week that is National Historic Preservation Week.
Is it also our anniversary?
Yes, May the 12th is the actual date when the town of East Windsor was incorporated in the legislature in Hartford. So this invitation is to celebrate you, to celebrate the role that you all play as selectmen, that your role is valuable and appreciated. And I really feel that this farmstead can also be used to teach children about the role of civics, about how to step forward and serve your community, because God knows William Thompson served it in many, many ways for many years. And by the way, there was no town hall in the 1800s when he was a selectman. He did business in his home. So those are, I would really like if you could, because this project, to do something with this site, I know we'll have to go through hoops with planning and zoning and so on and so forth. And I really would appreciate the select board being behind this project if they are willing. Because in the past, things that I've tried to do with historic preservation were not really that well supported by the select board.
What do you want us to do?
I think a letter of support would be enough to say that you approve of the use of this property in that way. Now, this property is an extensive piece of property. It's a 35-acre farm with a pond, farmland that is presently farmed as tobacco land, and it has a very old 19th century tobacco barn with an unusual brick foundation and a brick flooring, which is, yeah, it was a sorting.
Where is this?
This is in Melrose.
I know Melrose, but where?
It's,
Trying to picture it.
when you come out of East Road,
Yeah,
you'll slam right into the house. If you,
okay.
And Mr. Thompson's property ran all the way to the Enfield town line, because when Margaret came here, she had 9 children. She came as a widow because her husband, William, died in Ireland, because the story of the family was that they were Scotsmen. The English asked them to come to Ireland to farm, but it was a ruse. because they were never going to get those farms. They were forever to be tenant farmers. When the Thompsons got wind of it, they said, leaving. We can go to America, and there we will have our own farm. And so they booked passage on an Irish ship in 1720. And she and her 9 children, because her husband, remember, died in Ireland, and came here all by her lonesome as a widow with these 9 children. And she got 9 what they call mile-long lots that went the entire length of Melrose from the Ellington line all the way to the Scannick.
How did she get and end up here from the ocean when she came out? Do you know what I'm saying?
How did she end up? Well, my guess is that those ships, don't forget, East Windsor was part of the Massachusetts Bay Colony.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is that people and produce, if you study the history of Windsor, people and produce came to that section of town, of Connecticut. They came upriver. The ocean-going vessels came all the way upriver to Windsor, and they disembarked. And then the Bissell Ferry carried them across the river. And the Bissell Ferry carried them there in the beginning only for the purposes of pasturing their cattle and their sheep or whatever they had. And then eventually they established Scantic so that they wouldn't have to keep crossing the river all the time because it got every night, haul all your animals back on the ferry and take them back across the river and put them in the pens, in the colony of Windsor. So they just established East Windsor. And then little by little, they got grants. Now, I think the Reverend Bartlett was a minister at the Scantic Church when it was first established. And he was the one who issued these land grants. He would get them from the king, just like in Windsor. They got the grants for land from the king, and then they were distributed among the settlers.
Interesting. Interesting. This is about the best thing I've said since I've been on this board. I'm sure you probably watched this, but you sound exactly like I'm sitting live on Antique Roadshow. Your voice is just like those people, and you're so descriptive about everything and know everything.
Well,
that's pretty good.
What this is about, and the reason why I'm very committed to this is because I used to be an educator. And my grandfather had a saying, what you carry in your head, you don't carry in your pocket. And I think the biggest travesty now for youth is that they think they don't have to carry anything in their head because they can, bing, hit the computer and pull it up. All this tale that I just told you, I would challenge you to go on the computer and see if you can find it. This is the oral history of East Windsor. And this is what we need to leave to our children. I found a Ziggy cartoon. I don't know if anybody reads Ziggy, but I enjoy Ziggy. And Ziggy says that, and I'll leave you with this parting thought. Ziggy says the great thing about studying history is that we keep making more of it. And that's true. We do.
You could read that a couple of ways.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's true. But I think it's true from the perspective of if our children could only learn the value of knowing about where they live. That old Indian saying, you give them roots, they have wings. Well, these are their roots. And I have gone many, many places in this world. I traveled back and forth to Europe many times, lived there, lived in other states. But this is my home, and I came back here. And when I'm not well received with my efforts to try to do something for the town of East Windsor, it is heartbreaking for me. This is my home. And this is where I want to leave my legacy. You all are probably, all of you married, all of you have children. I don't. This right here is my legacy. And I want to leave it to someone.
have you or are you going to reduce what you're talking here to writing? You know, a lot of what you know is, you know, it should be written down.
Well, some of it is written down in the National Register nomination form. But I've also, Rachel Thompson was very kind to me after she yelled at me for putting her property on the register. And I said, it's not yours, mine. It's in the national, a lot of this is in what I talked about is in the National Register nomination form. If you go to the town clerk's office and go into the vault or go to Warehouse Point Library and go in the reference section, there are over 200 properties that were listed in the architectural review by the state. That architectural review sat fallow for 11 years before our commission was formed. And then we began a process of trying to look into taking care of those properties. And so far, we've only done Melrose. But at the time, the commissioners that I had established one district for every village, because every village has an identity that needs to be preserved. Whether or not that will ever come to fruition, I don't know.
I hope so.
But it is my profound wish that it does, because it's an asset to this town.
Thank you very much for the
So
input.
what do you actually, you're looking for, like, I guess the house that you live in, that someday when you pass, that you're looking for the town of East Windsor to kind of take it over, maintain it, and keep it as a museum?
Well, no, if it works, the town won't have to. Because if the town supports, I've already begun working on, you know, activities. This is, you know, music from the Victorian era. This is, you know, coloring activities for kids. You know, I used to be a curriculum designer, so I'm an educator at heart. And stories, you know, things that can be done with kids, and this property has enormous potential because it has natural areas, historic buildings, just, you know, farmland. It just has so much that can be programmed for use by people, you know, in the town of East Windsor. And I think that what attracted this is the other point I want to raise, what attracted the historic New England to this property is that it incorporates 2 centuries. It incorporates the 19th century and the 20th century. That 1917 bungalow that was built by Seba Eleanor Pease and Laura Pease, her older sister. Seba paid for that property from her earnings as a school teacher in 1917, but she couldn't build it. Her brother had to sign the contracts for Amos T. Bridges to come and build that bungalow, because women didn't have that authority in that time period. And that is in a very unusual site for them, and that was very appealing to them. And they would have taken it from me immediately to do something with it, but it required an upfront fee of $50,000, which I didn't have to give them. So the trade-off is that I set this up and make it run and make it useful. And if I can prove that to them, I've done the register step and I've done the district step. These were requirements they discussed with me, and I've done those. And now I want to start working on the programming. I don't want this kind of stuff to be lost for the town. I just think it's such a travesty to lose these things.
So what are the next steps you'd like us to do?
I'm sorry?
What are the next steps you would like us to do?
If you just give me a letter of support, I think it will help me in the long run with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Because this site has been in this mode with me for the last, my mother died in 2004. And so for the last 14 years, I've been cooking this project. And when she died, the Planning and Zoning Commission refused to acknowledge that this site had potential for an educational museum it's a very sad story for me. They allowed a developer to come in the back, and they would not permit a buffer between myself and the developer. And that was destructive to the site. And I had testimony from many, many people who were historians and architectural historians, and they said, basically, you brought us all this stuff, but it's all by historians, you know, so what? And I just was very devastated by that.
But, Barbara, I think if
Anyway.
I'll be available, so you can come to my office anytime, and
Right.
you know that, and I'll work with you, and then I'll bring to the board
Right.
our progress, and we'll work on this.
Right. I mean, if you want to call me back and you want more information, fine, I'm amenable to that. I just feel like now I really need your support behind this as the directors of the town of East Windsor.
Okay. Well,
Because I'm so afraid that I can try to do this and that it will be shot down so easily because there's not the foresight to see its potential.
well, we'll write that letter.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy
Yeah.
anniversary.
Okay, now we'll move on to adopt and approve the Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program Resolution. And this was in your packet, and what we have to do tonight is to pass a resolution. And if you have the resolution in front of you, resolution for the use of program income, it's a long paper, but number 5 at the bottom says this, that it is hereby amending the program income plans that was adopted for the original activity that generated the program income to permit the funding of additional activities from that program income. So what this resolution says is that we can use the money that's in this program income for something else. And back in the Board of Selectmen meeting of September 5th, 2017, so that wasn't that long ago, we passed this motion. And the motion is to move forward with the publication notice as required on the excess balance of the Small Cities Grant and assist Park Hill in the rehabilitation of showers. And so at that meeting, we decided to take the $52,000 that are in this fund and use it to rehabilitate showers, make them ADA compliant in Park Hill. And a little background is many years ago, the state set up a fund, a program income fund, that would allow people to borrow money from that to fix up their homes. And the condition was when they sold their house, or they would return the money to the fund. Well, some towns have a big active fund. We don't. We have $52,000 in it, and maybe every once in a while some money will come in, but we pay the state money to maintain this $52,000. I think it's $4,000 a year. So that money just being eaten away. And also the state may decide to, because we're not using it, just take it away. It's in a sense their money. But by publishing this notice and by signing this resolution, we can use this money to make the showers at Park Hill ADA compliant. So it would be, that's a use they would allow us to do with that. So.
Have you spoken to the Housing Authority?
Yes.
And they're on board?
They're cheering, and they expect, I mean, they were cheering in September when we did this. It's just a formality, that it's come to the point where now we have to, we advertised it, now we have to pass the resolution to give them the
How
money.
much is it, 50 what?
52,000.
52,000, every unit will be covered with that?
I don't think so. I would say 4 to 6 showers that would be done with that, to make them ADA compliant.
It's pretty expensive, isn't it, huh?
It is.
Per unit.
I would, don't know.
Things aren't cheap anymore, you know.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So it's basically, we better use it or lose it.
That's right. We kind of decided that on September 5th. So this is just a formality that says, okay, you can use the money for something else. So I would make a motion to adopt the resolution as put forth in the resolution for the use of program income. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll go on to a discussion of the Kogut property. And you raised this, and some people want to come up and join the discussion. And there would be a renter of the Kogut property.
I'm Glenn Ripley. Oh, Andy.
Nice to meet you.
Never got to meet you or talk to you. Charlie.
How you doing?
I'll find out in a few minutes.
Shall I lead it off, Bob?
Sure.
I would like to get, first of all, I think that the Kogut property can be used for better purposes than it currently is being used for the farming. We derive roughly $2,700 a year from it, and I believe that the town could do better than that. I believe that as selectmen, we should be stewards of getting that property to produce as much income as we can used for its best purpose. I think to do that, we have some things to do. We should review the purchase agreement, so we need a copy of that.
The rental agreement.
No, the purchasing agreement.
Oh, yes.
On the land, on the land.
Well, yeah, okay, we did.
Yeah, I have the rental agreement.
Okay.
And that gives the town the option to terminate the contract with Glenn with 1 year's notice. 1 year's notice. If you look at the original plan for that, plot plan for that, it was going to be a municipal complex. Schools and town hall and fire and police and so on. I really don't see the town moving forward in those areas in any near term. Take the school system, for example. Our school student population is dropping off. We just spent a lot of money on the elementary school in town. We are spending money on the middle school right now, and it's my understanding that the high school has surplus capacity. If that's all true, then I believe there's something we should do, and Glenn should certainly know about it, and I'm glad he's here tonight, that after we look at those documents and try to understand them, and you got to make clear that there is no intent of harming you as a farmer. But we,
Really?
what's that?
I just said, really?
That's
Oh,
all,
sure.
I'll let you, I'll let you
take that as
continue,
a-
because.
I take that as an
I
offense.
don't want to
Yeah.
penalize you guys financially.
Really?
Stop.
Sure.
Stop.
At any rate, we should look at the option of working with a commercial realtor to see what can be done with that property.
Can I interject something, first of all?
Hmm?
As a Board of Ed member,
Mhm.
the town of East Windsor did not pay anything towards the elementary school. That was all a grant program.
No, my only point though is
I'm
that
just-
nothing additional will have to be done with that. We will
There is
not,
no surplus room at the high school. Every room is utilized. We just did a study on that.
even though the population is dropping off
Correct.
dramatically.
Every single room at the high school is being utilized.
Then if we were to go back up another 400 people like we lost, you'd have to need an expansion of the school
Possibly,
Or
Wow.
increased class size.
or increase class sizes.
or reallocate.
So I just wanted to make clear,
Yeah.
so as a
No, I
Board of
really-
Ed member, I just wanted to
Yeah,
correct the
and
facts.
that's fine. Frankly, I didn't know that.
Mhm.
But be it as that may be, the elementary school, for 1 year into its expansion, has got to have the capacity that we need for some long time.
No, that's already full. Every single room is already full, being
You
utilized.
mean after spending several $1 million on it, we've now got to go out and do more?
No,
for the
we're
elementary school?
making do with
Yeah,
what we have.
that's my
But
point.
that's not here nor there.
That's my point.
We're here to discuss the Colgate property
We are.
and what it is doing to,
But
the
part of that
continued
is what
problems.
intended use and what we...
the intended use is we're using 52 acres of
Yep.
that property.
Yep,
There are over 199-something acres
130, 156.
There's 99 that's not
that's not being utilized.
Okay.
Why are we continually being brought before this board for the past 18 months since the new administration has taken effect and continually harassed about taking our property from us? I read some of your notes. We do not have a 3-year lease with 1 year contingency cancellation. We have a 16-year lease
With 1 year cancellation.
with 1 year cancellation.
But what you don't know, and your new board members, you should have made it your point to contact me.
Mhm.
This
But
is a
that's why you're here
closed,
tonight.
wait, no.
We were here because...
This is a closed town hall. Glenn Reichley doesn't get notice of anything going on. It's sad. I don't get a notice from anybody on what goes on here. If you and Charlie want an update, you want to meet for breakfast tomorrow morning, I will lay out everything from beginning to end as to what we have done since day one.
I'd like
I'm
to do
clearing,
that
I'm
someday.
clearing this property, I'm paying a fine on a man having a pipe collapse that we took care of. I could go on, and I have photos and documentation of what I have done, and nobody has the courtesy to come forward and speak to me about this. I have to come here every year since this new administration and defend what I have going on, because that was not pucker brush. I don't know if you have any clue as to what it costs to clear that farm. But if you think that what I'm paying in land rent is peanuts, this
I do.
government spends hundreds of millions of dollars preserving farmland, and so does the state of Connecticut. I didn't set the price on the property leases here.
I think we're getting peanuts.
You do.
Regardless of who...
Let me
set the
explain
price.
this to you, sir.
Mhm.
I feed the community. I'm not a backyard gardener. 2.5 million pounds of butternut squash, hundreds of tons of corn, potatoes. You know where that goes? Locally.
To food share.
Food share.
Food bank.
Food bank. The cupboard. I've had this community reap my fields. Is anybody else going to step up to the plate and clear any property and feed these people in these towns that need this?
Glenn, is that at a cost? You get paid for that?
No, I do not.
You give it away?
Correct.
Yes, I do.
And
That's
he was
good.
even awarded a Spirit Award by the
Yes,
town
sir.
administration
So I'd
last
like
year
to sit
in
down and
September.
explain things from day one,
I'd like to hear it.
because this is a closed door policy here, and we're left out hanging.
Understand, I'm the guy that started this thing. I'm brand new here,
And
I wanna understand.
And you really should have reached out to contact me. I am in town 24/7, all my contact information. Bob is aware of what we did, Steve is aware, Jason is aware of what has gone on since day one. And there's a member of this audience that have seen what has gone on since day one here.
And the way we're reaching out is by me putting it on the agenda. I asked Bob to do it, and to sit down and talk to you tonight.
Then why
And
was
I'd be
it,
glad to meet with you anytime you want.
then why was it held in executive session on January 4th? And there
It was not.
No?
Andy brought this up within the last couple of weeks.
January 4th, there was a distribution letter of the agenda with Fast Pitch Nations.
Fast Pitch Nation came in, and that what gave us the idea. People said, well, maybe we can use this land for something else. We didn't give it to Fast Pitch Nation.
Why is it continuously the 50 acres? Why was the dog park? We have given away, we have continuously given back to this town. The dog park was taken, the skateboard park was taken, the community gardens were taken.
I guess
We were never, ever given a monetary, no, excuse me, I'm talking.
Okay, when you're through.
We were never compensated monetarily. We've never asked for anything. And all we do is get the land continuously, oh, we can put more to that, we need more, we need more. You have another 99 acres. You even walked it last year and said, oh, nobody's gonna wanna go in there, it's full of tobacco wire and everything else. We know because that's what we cleared off in 2007 and 2008. We know exactly what is on that property. We know how many thousands of dollars that we put into that property already. And all this town ever wants to do is take it away from us. This is my husband's livelihood.
You know what's on the town seal? What's on the town seal? Not recreation, not boating. What's on the town seal, Bob?
I would guess a tree.
Then what's it all about? It's about agriculture.
I believe your wife was speaking, and I wanted to say something.
I'm sorry, I'm very passionate, and I apologize to you, sir.
Okay, and your question is, why does the town keep trying to take it away? And from my perspective is, and I appreciate what you said, and I know there was a history, and I know that you came in and we redid the lease.
No, we didn't
we didn't redo it.
All right, let me just read this. This is all I'll read, and then you can speak some more. The lease a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago, said that we had to give you 60 days notice, and then we could take the property. Now, we've changed it. So it says the landlord shall have the right upon 365 days prior written notice to the tenant without any liability therefore to terminate the agreement at any time for its sole convenience. So it says that we can terminate our agreement with you, the town can terminate our agreement with you for our sole convenience. Notwithstanding this right, the landlord will attempt to accommodate the tenant, if possible, during the period of harvest or any activity, any actively growing crop. So that's what we look at and say, well, this land is the town's, we paid $3 million for it, and we can use this town if we find there's a better use for it for the town, if we as the Board of Selectmen feel there's a better use for it. We don't know there's a better use for it, but you come in as if you own the land and you don't. We paid $3 million, the town did. So, you know, I respect what you do. We gave you the award for what you do great. I'm not putting anything down. And that's why we're looking at it. This isn't your property, it's the town's property. I've said my piece.
And Glenn, understand, the 56 acres that you farm is just part of it.
That's correct.
If we were to go out to a commercial realtor and say, we would like to understand what can be done with that property, the property you're farming may not even be the target of that commercial realtor. They may say it's someplace else. But if in fact it is the target of that realtor and it turns out to be a good deal for the town, I think as selectmen, we have to exercise good judgment and say, it's what we should do. Just the way I feel about it.
Yet this town is built on agriculture. The planning and
Do you ever work
zoning,
for yourself,
the
Amy?
planning and zoning board on their door says agriculture,
Yeah.
bring back agriculture.
Yeah.
That whole door over there, my daughter took a picture of it.
Yeah,
What they
Without
just handed
farmers.
out was off the website about farming and the community and what agriculture means to this town and the importance. The lady who was just up here, what was she talking about? Preserving the town, bringing back farms, talking about what made this town what this town
and
is.
you're worried about $3 million, what to do with $3 million from the casino? And you're trying to market this farm? Really?
Don't know.
Don't know.
Don't know the answer to that.
Well, I'll give you the answer. It's a farm community. We want to do what's good for humanity in here in town with all this money that's coming in. Let's keep feeding people, let's keep farming it. The original agreement, when I started this, was to, if they needed the property for a building, that's what it was for.
It's right.
And that's what it was for.
Yep.
I'm on board with that. I'm not on board with golf. I'm not on board with that. I'm not on board with the ball fields or anything. I'm not. Because that doesn't benefit us
As a community.
as a community.
But that's where our opinion differs. I believe if we can find a better use for that property, maybe not even the stuff you're farming, it's our responsibility to do that.
Stuff I'm farming is under target continuously.
Yeah.
Once you clear it up, everybody wants a piece of it. And that's what comes under fire.
That is absolutely.
Okay? And the problem lays is that when the, 18 months ago, they lost the lease to this property. Then the lease was rewritten, handwritten, and they didn't know what was going on. It changed. And I have to come up here and argue and defend this and go through this continuously because of this issue.
What are you defending?
What am I defending?
Yeah.
That I'm out of the loop on this. Nobody fills me in on this. I'm not, did anybody think to give me a call or contact me? No.
We'll keep you in the loop from now on, but
We've asked that previously.
Yeah, never happened, Bob.
yeah, well, I think, like, I remember the first time that Fast Pitch Nation came in.
Right.
You discouraged them from even coming to the table to sit. All we wanted to do is listen to what they had to say.
He didn't discourage them, he told the truth.
But this is what I try to explain, is you don't understand the undertaking of clearing property. You have no clue, you have no clue what it costs to clear that. And you need to put yourself in our shoes, okay? You need to put ourselves in our shoes. We cleaned up the town's farm to have an extended lease for the amount of money we put into clearing that farm. That wasn't some pucker brush to go in and mow. That was all.
Did you clear 56 acres?
Yes, sir, we sure
All of
did.
it?
40 and 50-foot trees. Stumped it and brought that back to the agriculture that it was and spent the money getting that ground in good continuous shape. And I will explain to you all the other issues that came on. We'll sit down and discuss it. And I'm not here to belittle Bob or anybody here. That's not my intent. Not at all. I'm not trying to say that. But it just seems to be that ever since this administration started, we're getting slammed here continuously.
But understand, it is not this administration. It is Andy Hoffman who kicked this thing off. I knew nothing about the administration and any friction you might have with it.
Okay.
It's me you should blame for this.
No,
okay?
no, you know what, I'm
We're not
just
here to
simply
blame.
saying,
We're here to-
I don't
I'm just
want
saying, I'm the guy that
No,
caused it to
no,
happen.
no,
We're here
no.
to defend
I'm
ourselves.
willing to
just-
listen to what you want to say,
I'm-
but I'm the guy that made it happen.
I just would like you to hear what started from beginning to current
Be happy to do that.
on the farmer side. And I didn't just land here. Been over 100 years. My father's my partner, he's 91. He still farms.
He's your boss.
He's my boss. Okay? The Righties have never turned their back on East Windsor once. Never. In 100 years. We're not gonna. Has the town ever said, hey, what do you think about this proposal? Do you think we could do this? Nope. It's just
We
a
don't have a
snowball.
proposal.
You've had them in the past.
I don't know about that, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah.
But we don't have a proposal. What we're looking to do is to understand if there's a basis for a proposal.
Yeah.
We don't know what that is. And we should investigate that as a board, and we'll talk to you, certainly talk to you. But we should understand that from the standpoint of being a board who is supposed to do good for the town.
So what do you think that should do? What do you think that farm should be done?
Don't know. I don't know.
Do you think the town, you should entertain all the recreation and all those things?
What I think we should do with it is tempt Microsoft to come in and build a $1 million, a 1 million square foot building and hire people who get paid $500,000 apiece so they can pay big taxes in our town. That's being stupid, okay? But you're asking me, what we should do. I don't know the answer to that. But the thing we shouldn't do is sit on our hands doing nothing. That's my belief.
We're not doing nothing.
We are taking,
No, we are taking very good care of that ground. We're the stewards of that ground. We're taking care of that for the future of the future schools, firehouses, municipality buildings, whatever has to go there. We're taking care of that ground for that, right now.
Glenn, it'll never happen.
That's not true, Andy.
Still
It'll
kind of
never
breaking
happen.
up.
You can't project the future no more than anybody else.
We've owned it for 17 years and nothing has happened.
But we just spent an hour fighting over money we don't even have and how we're
Right.
all excited to spend that. I mean,
Right.
it's a different day in terms of what the possibilities are.
I would certainly like to sit down with you and understand. I would like to do that anytime you want to. But I'm going to push for getting a better understanding of what that land has, what value that land has to the town.
Andy,
Mr. Hoffman.
we have one thing in common, Mr. Hoffman. My wife always will correct me because this is what I don't get. The reason we're breathing in this room and we're all fit and fine is because we're all eating. Okay? We're all eating. Everybody in here is doing well as far as that goes.
True.
So everybody in this room, come on Thanksgiving, gets on their high horse and bandwagon, let's give them a turkey and $50. Where's the praise for the rest of the year? Why don't you want to see agriculture go there? Why don't you want to see that keep producing, keep going? Why?
It isn't that I don't want to see it. It's that I'd like to see if there's a better option. You have to understand that, Glenn. I'm not saying that we should kick you off. What I'm saying is we should understand what the options are so that we can in fact make the best decision for the town of East Windsor. That's our obligation. That's what we're here for.
You know, Andy,
Yep.
you and I will sit down and we will go through, and I will tell you from day one what started here, and I will explain things to you
I really would like to
in
do
depth, and if Charlie would like to hear what the Reitleys went through here, maybe you can understand it a little bit better.
Yep.
Well, just for public record, because it's 9:30 and it's getting late, anytime the Kogut property is to be discussed, we would like notification of it.
Sure.
From this point on.
Shouldn't be a problem.
Can I just say something else?
Hmm.
There's so much other property in this town, so much that the town owns. Why don't you guys ever look into that? Why don't you question the peanut cost on leasing all that land? Why is it always the attack on Kogut Farms?
What other land?
There's Donnie Wagner leases, there's multiple pieces
I
of
mean-
farmland in this town. There's a beautiful piece at the end of Ellsworth Road, right next to the Scannick River.
A lot of the leases of land, we are obliged or we're obligated to lease it for farming. I mean, that's what the ownership of the land says, that, I believe.
So, no farms, no food.
No,
Exactly. Thank you. There's a sign right at the zone that says, right on planning and zoning that says that. I mean,
Don't give away food for a couple of bucks, who cares?
I mean, you can say that in public
I
participation.
just did.
I know you did.
So if you talk to a commercial realtor, you're going to get a very different answer than if you talk to a residential developer. You're going to get a very different answer than if you talk to the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And so it has to be not just about dollars. It's not just because highest and best use is not going to be agriculture, pretty much anywhere.
Nothing ever is.
But there is a utility beyond what the highest and best use is. There is as the Whiteys have pointed out, there is the need to make sure that there is available land for agricultural production. There is the commitment that the town made at the point where the land was purchased that it would be used for public good. Now, there's actually a Supreme Court case in the Kelo decision that says that public good could include commercial purposes privately held that build the tax base. Some would say that's a bogus argument. I think it is. So there are different values beyond just the monetary. You know, there's the agrarian history of the town and the roots that we have as a farming community go back before the formulation of the country. You know, Connecticut during the Revolutionary War was referred to as the provisioners. We grew all the food that the Revolutionary Army sustained themselves on. So there is something to be said for, and I'll tell you, I have knocked on more doors in this town than I believe anybody else in town. And over the course of my 11 years as an elected official. And I will tell you, I hear constantly that we need to preserve our rural character. I hear that probably 1,000 times an election cycle.
Jason, does that mean I shouldn't ask the question?
No, I'm just saying, you know, who you ask it of, it's all part of analytics, right?
We can decide that.
Who you ask the question of will predicate what the answer is. So if you're talking about going to a commercial realtor, you're going to get a response that is from the perspective of a commercial realtor, which is not necessarily the same response that you would get if you were talking to a soil scientist.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'm taking, as most of you know, I'm taking a course on public policy analysis, and there is a distinction between policy-based evidence-making and evidence-based policy-making. So understanding what you want the answer to be and then asking the questions that justify the answer is not sound public policy.
And you're right.
So by throwing out this notion of talking to a commercial realtor, you're already kind of poisoning the well in what the response to that is going to be.
It's one of the answers we should see.
Maybe.
Maybe you want to talk to a couple of different kinds of disciplines to get the right answer, but certainly a commercial realtor is one facet of understanding what that land has for values for our town.
I would suggest also then making sure you talk to a soil scientist. You guys know Kip Kolzinskis from NRCS? No. I could put you in touch.
Thank you.
Glenn, if the property at the town decided to sell it, you interested in buying that?
Sure.
Subdivided.
Okay.
Just remember, there's no water on the property. There's no water there. So, if you're looking to put in anything,
How do you irrigate?
you don't.
You don't.
No?
No.
And just town of East Windsor, I got a
For good
permit
weather.
when I ventured into this to dig that pond out. State of
So you
Connecticut.
created a pond?
The
No.
state of, nope, I was gonna reclaim the one that's there. And Nancy found out from the state of Connecticut that the town should not have ever issued that to me. That has to be dredged out and be disposed of. And they asked me if I would relinquish that, or else the town would be on the hook to dig that pond out. It's just one thing that I said yes to. I wouldn't want the town to be on the hook with that. So,
That's good. That's nothing but good.
everything I do is nothing but good. That's what the Wrightley family does.
I don't understand, why couldn't you dig that pond out?
Because it's full of sediment, and it all has to go because it's full of whatever, EDBs or whatever. The state of Connecticut says if that gets dredged out, that has to be disposed of, and at that time, when they issued me the permit, the ones that had to dispose of that would have been the town of East Windsor. So that means that would have had to been baled up in plastic or however they wanted to dispose of whatever soil it was. And I says, let's leave things well enough alone that we won't dig that out. And she was appreciative, and I said, well, there's no sense in opening up Pandora's box. But I assume most planning departments in most towns are to look out for the best interest of the town. Not to sell their property off, to entice businesses to come into this town. 250 acres over in Winslow Road. It's a lot of land there. Railroad tracks down there, there's land up on 140.
Nobody's bought that. It's been
And
for
now,
sale.
now you want to peddle off the town's property, or you want to get into some type of a building on the town's property, where the forefathers had enough sight to buy that property for this town to grow, and that's not right to try to sell it off to commercial or to rent that to somebody to put other buildings on, other than town buildings. And what we are doing is keeping that ground working and cleared. The town planning department should be trying to sell this town property. They come up with the money to buy it. It's there for the town.
How did we buy that? Did we buy it?
It's there for the town. You know, Andy, you really want to dig into something deep? They should have mined the gravel off of it.
Oh, jeez, no.
Who?
The town should have.
Town can't mine it and sell it.
That's right, they can't.
They can mine it and use it for their own use.
That's right.
I need to see a copy of that agreement when we bought that land.
Yeah,
But
I need to see
not
what
the
it
details, it
says.
says just about, it's on the deed, and it's just a few sentences, it says what Glenn says.
I know that part, but the other parts, if there's anything.
I don't think there is any.
Only town use and all that. you
I
know.
don't think so.
I've never seen it.
But I'll tell you what I'd like to see something fix up the center of Broadbrook. It's in decline. So if you can figure out something to do with the land to fix up the center of Broadbrook, let me know.
Working on it?
It's not farmable.
But when a town is able to have the acreage that this town has right there for the future, your forefathers were on the ball when they bought that farm to keep that land and not look to sell that land. Because we don't know what buildings we're gonna put on that thing in 50 to 100 years. And if we start putting it into commercial stuff and into all this other stuff, you're gonna be boxed in.
If that done properly, with good planning, any commercial development could live fine with public sector development, adding a town hall or whatever. If it's done right.
We have other commercial property for sale in this town. We really don't need to be going selling off the Colgate farm at all.
But this is a piece of property that the town owns, that they can do something with. You were saying there's a lot of property on Winslow Road. That's true, but that's owned by a private
But
person.
the town planners should be putting that together and bringing in businesses, not putting a for sale sign on the farm that it was intended either for 50 or 100 years down the road for the town expansion.
What does the town POCD say for that?
For this,
Yeah.
in here? Well, it has the map of the property, and it's all laid out about how it's to have offices, community/senior center, schools, and then the recreational facility. It's already laid out on the Colgate property.
You know,
And it's
actually-
mapped out, this was from 2016.
It'll never happen in my lifetime.
But it's still something that was planned ahead for the community, something that
That
everyone
was
worked
just
very,
completed in
very,
2016.
everyone worked very hard on. This is what the town wishes to be like one day. I mean,
Can the town sell the development rights on that property?
Absolutely.
What are development rights worth right now?
Depends on the property. You need to do a boundary survey, you need
Yeah.
to do an appraisal, you need to do
Well,
soil.
it's based on the appraisal.
Right.
The more
Yeah, I
the
mean,
land's worth, the more you're gonna get.
For development rights, could be anywhere from 2,000 to 14,000 an acre.
What do you mean by development rights?
The state of Connecticut buys the development rights. So
Oh.
what that means is that when you sell the development rights, that cannot be developed. It has to stay in agriculture. The government spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year doing that, and the state of Connecticut does also spend millions.
I believe it was brought up in December 5th in the meeting. Mr. Grant brought it up, the same type of things. And it's also actually listed in the POCD about
BDR?
looking after farming entrepreneurs, working with the state to get land trusted like that, farm leases.
So
There's a lot about it.
What happens with the purchase of development rights program is when the...
No, I understand that.
But there's more to it that I want to explain, because you actually might like this as a potential solution here. So when the state or another entity purchases the development rights, a conservation easement is put in place on the property that has had those rights purchased from it, and that restriction limits what it basically puts a big check in the pocket of the property owner and restricts what the use of that land can be. So with the state's program, and DEEP has a different thing, I don't know what they do, but what the Department of Agriculture does is, with our conservation easement through negotiation, restricts the use of the land for agricultural purposes or nothing at all. You can't do anything other than that. Now you can negotiate and configure the property so that certain pieces are carved out. Right.
So if you wanted to build a house or you wanted to be able to put up impervious surface of some sort, you can do that. But the property that's left within that boundary has a conservation easement that's put in place. It's very similar to what happened with Barberville School. And in exchange, the town can see, or the landowner can see, a substantial amount of money, in the hundreds of thousands. Actually, there's a project active in East Windsor right now that is almost $1 million. And that's
For development rights.
the acquisition of development.
So which property is this?
I can't tell you. It's in negotiation.
Okay, I think we put it on the agenda to discuss it. I'd say we've discussed it. And if we want to discuss it further, we'll put it on the agenda
When
again.
would you like to get together?
Let me, give me your phone. Let me call.
Absolutely.
So can I get a copy of the agreement when we bought it, so I can see what's in it?
It'll be the deal.
930.
That's the only thing that it is. Yeah, you can have a copy of that.
31.
I'd love to sit down and talk.
I would too.
You know,
It's a learning experience.
everything is a learning experience.
Sure.
And the East Windsor's a great town. They've got very good towns. Just got to make sure we keep things rolling, you know? Thank you, people. I know it's a long night.
Okay. Now we'll approve tax refunds. Yeah.
All right, so what do you need, a motion?
Yes.
I would make a motion that we accept the tax refund dated 2/12/18 for the amount of $7,936.91.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
All right. Now, selectmen comments and reports.
I guess I'm up. Went to a planning and zoning meeting, and the casino came in with like a preliminary, can't say the word too well, presentation, just to get input on what the commissioners thought, their ideas were, certain things they wanted to see done. So it left there. I mean, I thought the questions at the board, for the first time in my life, I thought the questions that they asked were pretty legit. And then we attended a wetlands meeting for the redelineation of the wetlands, which gave them more non-wetland area. And that went right through real nice. So that was a good thing. So now they can continue on moving with their plans on the structure and the site. And there was something else I wanted to talk about. I didn't bring it with me. I don't know why I didn't. I was going to hand it out to all the members here. It There was an article, because we've been talking about either a town administrator or a town manager. Simsbury just went from a selectman board of government to a town manager, in which they kept all their board of selectmen, which would act as like a town council, but they still kept the board of selectmen.
They are now advisory.
Well, the town manager would has to answer to the board of selectmen, okay? And from what I'll bring the article the next time so you can read about this woman. She's 38 years old. She negotiates union contracts, a lot of things. And the other problem, Charlie, hold on to your seat now. She's getting paid $153,000 a year.
It's more than Trump.
Okay? And plus she gets incentives if she meets her goals. Now, if you read what this person, incentives, she's got goals, and if she meets them, she will get more money, okay? I asked Bob to maybe try to round up a job description for this person, okay? So maybe that's something we could spin off of, okay? And check it out. And maybe this is something that the charter revision can think about, you know, to get that kind of government here with the 5 selectmen here, still here, with the person who's running the town who will negotiate contracts, and everything else that this person does, and they have to answer to us. And that person, you can hire and fire, okay? So I'm going to bring that article in, and maybe you can get that job description. And for the next one,
Yes,
I'd like to see what they put out for an ad to get that person, you know?
Without believing that, Steve, just so you know from, the Charter Study Committee, that
The exploratory committee.
yeah, regardless what you call the person, okay, we've been talking about a CFO, and would be doing all of those kinds of things. Okay, so that's, without that title, then would be having exactly those same responsibilities.
All right, but you realize the number I threw out there, and a lot of the towns around are paying these kind of numbers.
Right.
And we can't say we're gonna pay the guy $50,000 a year to come in here and take that kind of a
Well,
job.
maybe we won't have a guy.
Well, a woman, or you know, you're winking at me now, you're playing with me here. But, no, we've gotta start paying up, and I keep saying it.
It's all about what their capabilities are.
That's right, absolutely,
Everybody has a
sure.
different price. It's not
Sure.
where you stamp a price on something, okay? There's gotta be a range.
I didn't stamp the price, all I said is what they're paying this person.
Okay.
So this person must be pretty darn qualified to be able to
And
get.
you have to look at what the value added, right? Do they pay for their stuff?
But when you're starting with something like this, you want to have a range, because we might not go the full range because of what the
Sure.
capabilities, but we like that person, so.
Well, this person
we have a range.
also writes grants.
Mhm.
Okay, she writes grants. And supposedly the amount of grants that she has written is pretty much almost paid for her salary.
Do you know if she added staff
So-
to support her?
I do not know that.
See, that may
But the
not be-
article, from the way I read it, this person was awful passionate about her job.
Right, but she may have 2 or 3 staff people that were added for that. We don't know.
We don't know.
But we should look at it.
And
There's
then,
something to
Charlie-
look at, that's the only reason why I brought it up.
And then, Charlie, if she does add staff, I think that's okay. If in fact, that staff, she and her staff,
Have a deliverable.
deliver, you know.
There's a
And
deliverable.
what is and what do they deliver?
Yeah.
You know, how much better is the town for having her there?
They have to be deliverables.
Well, certainly they do.
Sure.
I just thought I'd mention it,
Yep.
that's all. Just to bring it up.
A lot of successful towns have professionals that manage it with Board of Aldermen or Board of Selectmen.
So that's the end of.
It's worth researching.
That's all I gotta say.
Yep. Worth
Okay, Andy,
researching.
you're up.
You're up.
You can comment, or?
I have no comment.
Okay.
The board, the commission has not met. It'll meet at the end of this month, and I will sit in.
Okay. Jason?
Progress continues to be made in terms of negotiating the pension contracts between the town and the various bargaining units. We've got 3 or 4 of them in the bag, one of them very close to across the goal line. We're seeking the commencement of negotiations with 2 others, and we've got 2 to go. So we are making progress. I expect there will be a savings realization to the town by the time that's done. That will be a welcomed end. This weekend is Abby's Helping Hands Winter Gala. The event will be at Manili's on Saturday night. All proceeds go to the good work that Abby's Helping Hands does all year long. I'm looking forward to it. I know tickets are still on sale, so if anybody hasn't gotten a ticket yet or wants to buy a ticket and just support the organization, that would be certainly appreciated. And the MMCT folks have unveiled the first iteration of what their plans are here in town, and 2,200 parking spaces is a pretty good footprint. So I'm looking forward to seeing some more complete drawings, but it's nice to see progress on that.
What drawings did you say?
I just saw that. I read about the details of the proposal. I didn't see a drawing.
Okay, so you weren't at the thing?
I was at school.
Okay.
The only drawing I've seen is a plot plan that showed roughly where things are gonna go. I talked to David
Capiello.
just yesterday, and he says it'll be probably 3 or more months before they have engineering drawings and an architectural.
Demo is supposed to be at the end of the month, though.
Yeah, that's right, end of the month. And
Oh, on that front, the Bridgeport Casino bill was introduced today.
Ah, okay.
So, interestingly, it calls for the siting of a 3rd casino in Connecticut. The only way you really can get to a 3rd casino is if you rescind the authorization from last year. So, it's going to be another rowdy time in the Capitol.
Sounds that way. Okay, Charlie.
Okay, I did attend the last Rouse Point Board of Fire Commissioners meeting, and we talked about a number of different things. The budget, which they'll be here for to talk about that. Brought up again the annual report, why they weren't in it, and we need to resolve that for next year, or this coming year, I should say. They have different fees that they charge there compared to Broadbrook. Like they charge fire marshal services for doing some kind of inspections on this new building.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
going up where in Broadbrook they don't charge that
That's
kind of
true.
fee. And it was like 40-some thousand for that particular thing that they did. So kind of need to bring that together. And there was also discussion that I think it was light discussion between Broadbrook and Wells Point about perhaps having the one fire district. And so they're going to have another meeting, and I'll be attending that meeting, and we'll see how that goes and see if we can't bring that closer together. That's not a quick thing to bring resolution to, but we're marching on, and I think there's some good steps going on there that will satisfy everybody. It won't be perfect, but it'll be something that I think everybody will be able to live with, and will be for the betterment of the town. Okay, that was that. I had a couple of things that I wanted to note here. I got the fire marshal's report here from Broadbrook, and this is not what we had discussed before in terms of what was going to be given to us. We did get the January report, and it it's primarily the calls that the fire department went on. There was just 2 inspections shown here, and
Is there a second page to that, isn't there?
well, there's, talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is primarily what calls the Broadwick Fire Department went on, you know, as opposed to what the inspections
I
were
think
by
it's
the fire marshal.
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Okay, and we had said at the time that we wanted to see a report, we did get one, okay, before, that would have a calendar for this year, 18-19, the fiscal year, of what inspections are scheduled and when, and were there any violations found, what corrective action was taken, has it been resolved, and a date when it was going to be, projected date when it was going to be resolved. And this doesn't do that, although I do like to see this information, because it's interesting to know, you know, how much activity the fire department had. But basically, there was those 2 inspections for Golden Irene's in an apartment on 67 Main Street, and then this report, inspection report, which was really just one site. So it didn't seem like there was much inspection activity for the month. And you know,
As I recall, that site that was inspected really is not in good shape at all, if that's the one I'm thinking of. And
yeah.
A lot of time was spent. They don't just trying to get the situation corrected.
Okay.
But they had, he had promised to give us a report each month that defined where he had been, what the results were, what the corrective action is, and also define when the corrective action had been completed, if it was scheduled out, and we're not getting that.
Okay, we'll check into it, and I like the idea of the calendar, too.
That's what we said.
Yeah.
We wanted, and that's what we expected to get. And his handwritten report is not really of any value.
Okay.
The other item I did want to mention is that I would like to see a meeting scheduled with us and the police chief and whomever to understand our plan that's in place to address the type of situation that occurred in Florida, and how ready are we for something like that, should that ever occur. I think it's in our best interest that you don't know, they didn't know, no one knows when something like that will happen. And I don't want to be looking backwards and saying, you know, we should have. And I think that, and perhaps they have that all nailed down, but I think we should be aware of it. Somebody asks us and we can say that we do. I think that's very, very important these days. It's just, it's not the way it was. And nobody has a solution for that, so I'd like to have that scheduled for maybe the next meeting or whenever.
Okay.
So that should be done in an executive session? That's a security matter? And absolutely, you do not want to air that to the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
And we should also reach out to the Board of Education about that. Those are both good ideas, Charlie.
Okay. And I'm up now, and I did go to the Board of Education for this Marketing Advisory Committee, and that was very interesting, and I'm going to attend the other one. It's at February 27th, and what they did is had us get together, and they had 3 groups, and we put stakeholders. We identified stakeholders, and of course the students and the teachers and the faculty, but and also then they branched into the town and the stakeholders in the town, and then another part they did barriers. They identified barriers that were preventing communication and marketing, or just really. So what they're trying to do is bring the town into the school system and the school system into the town. So it seems like a good exercise. We'll see. I'll see what the second session brings. And the other thing I'll just say, that as it was talked about before, February 28th, we're going to have a ceremony at the Showcase Cinema, and we're going to tear down start the demolition of the Showcase Cinema, so that should be interesting. I'm not sure who's going to be invited, but we'll see who wants to attend.
They didn't have a time for that day yet, did they?
They haven't set a time. They said it's probably somewhere between 11 and 2, but there should be an exact time when that ceremony will start, and so we'll see.
Bob, after that's completed, I think we should ask MMCT if they'll put a sign up there that says future home of the East Windsor, or whatever they're going to call it, casino. That's another small step, but I think that's something that should be done.
I think they've mentioned things like coming soon or something. But,
Do they have a name?
No.
No, they don't.
They've hired somebody to.
I thought they were going to name it after Steve.
I thought so too.
What's wrong with Maynard?
Dearborn actually sounds like it would be appropriate.
Yeah.
I think they're going to
Dearborn Towers
Casino. How's that?
I've already got that on my building on Rice Street.
There you go. Okay. Public participation. You waited so long. Wow, Carolyn.
Right. First, I just want to make a quick correction. In your last meeting, it was mentioned that certain Board of Finance meetings were canceled. The only meeting that was ever canceled was November, and that's because when people were elected versus when they could be sworn in, we couldn't have a meeting because they weren't sworn in yet. Other than that, we've had every single one of our meetings. So I just wanted to straighten that up. About the first public participation, that's kind of disheartening, because just because we don't like what we hear doesn't mean that people should be stopped from saying what they're feeling or what they believe. We all volunteer or get paid by the taxpayer. And if they need to say something, they should be allowed to say something. The old adage, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. We all volunteered for this, so, and everybody knows they're in a public position. I just think that's just unfair, telling the taxpayer they can't, say what they're feeling. I don't like sitting during our public hearing for Board of Finance and have people yelling at us and things like that. I don't like reading in the JI article that was in the paper like a couple days ago, a comment that was made by the charter committee. Well, those Board of Finance people, it's not like they can run multi-million-dollar businesses. Well, actually, a few of us do. So, I mean, you don't like hearing that stuff, but you know what? It is what it is. We put ourselves in this position, so we've got to suck it up. The other thing I just really have to say, seeing that the Koga property was on that agenda again is just disheartening. People work hard in this community, and I'm not going to go over everything that they said because it's true. And with Paul, no farm, no food. I mean, I just don't get it. There are so many bigger fish to fry in this town that we need to do. I mean, there are so many things that need to be looked at. This is like the last of them. I mean, so let's get a focus, and let's not sit here and continually poke and poke and poke at some strong members of the community. It's just sad. And right now, I guess that's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Sarah.
Sarah Muska, 25 Maple Avenue. I received a letter last week from a sitting selectman in my mailbox of my private residence. In that letter, I was told that this person didn't agree with the comments that I had made in public participation. The comment that I made was regarding selectmen attending other meetings to familiarize themselves with other boards and commissions about policies and procedures, specifically being the CIP. I was also told that I will have, quote, my turn, end quote, to speak when the Board of Selectmen present the budget to the board that I sit on, which is the Board of Finance, and that I shouldn't be participating in any Board of Selectmen workshops because I will slow the process down and hinder it. In my opinion, while reading this letter, I felt talked down to. I felt the intention was to keep me from expressing my opinion and intimidate me. However, that is not going to happen. And it concerns me that this happened because I thought you valued public participation. And if a selectman wants to address my comments, they should do so publicly. I just found it really inappropriate. This is the forum to address it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Paul?
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street. Kogut property thing really rubbed me the wrong way. We bought that property for our future. There was a town meeting that authorized the purchase of that property. And we bought it for the town's purpose, not to turn it into anything else. I would never want to see commercial development in that area. It doesn't belong. It's totally inappropriate. We have a plan of conservation and development. If we don't follow it, then we've lost the whole battle. We have no business looking at scrambling for dollars out of a piece of land that's public property. The last thing that should happen is public property sold, period. That is totally wrong. We lease that land out only because it's available and it's a useful purpose of land that's sitting idle. You don't just use land or grab money from it. I don't care if somebody tells me it's worth $100 million. I don't want the $100 million. That's a mistake. It's only money. You can't eat it. You can't help people live off it. It's garbage. That's not representing taxpayers. Your job is not to do things, it's to represent taxpayers. So if you're not discussing it with the taxpayers, I wouldn't even bring it up. I think it's a total mistake. But that's my opinion. I didn't mean to criticize anybody in particular. I just think in general, the selectmen have to represent taxpayers at all times, not what you can get away with and where you can find a few bucks. It's not gonna help. Now, I'm not gonna say anymore tonight. It's ridiculously late. We should never have a meeting this time of day.
Check registers.
Okay, thank you. More public participation?
Actually, Bob, I know I already talked, but I'm just gonna say something really quick, because I had no idea what Sarah just brought up, but I am the chairman of the Board of Finance, and that actually is a form of harassment. She is a volunteer for this town, considered just like an employee, and that's like harassment at work. So that is something you and I need to discuss, and we need to know who did that, and it needs to be addressed. It's unacceptable.
I think Sarah could probably tell you that.
Well, she could, but I really don't want it in public forum, but I think we need to discuss it. That is above and beyond.
Thank you. Yes.
James Barton, 108 Main Street, over in Warehouse Point section, East Windsor. I just want to make a couple comments on the casino impact money. I'm going to do it as a resident, not as the fire chief of Warehouse Point. Every meeting you talk about the $3 million impact money, but you never mention the $5.5 million that you're going to get as tax money. That money should be used to mitigate people's taxes. The $3 million is to actually mitigate the impact that that casino is going to have on services of this town. It's been in other places, and I've done the research myself. It's a fact that when you bring all this business into town, there's going to be more impact on fire services. There's going to be more impact on police services, whether you want to believe it or not. Just go down to Plains Township, Pennsylvania, and you can ask around and see how they do it. They get pretty much the same amount that the town East Windsor is going to get. So everybody's taxes really should go down by $5.5 million. Never mind the $3 million impact money that's going to be for. So you gotta split those two things out, because they're two different things. And to use impact money to sustain taxes it's not what that's for. The $5.5 million in tax money that you're going to bring in each year is what that should be used for.
Okay, thank you. Bob.
Bob Leach, 39 Church Street.
your police commission chairman. I noticed during public, or the comments from the selectmen anyway, one of the selectmen had mentioned, I think it was the, I forget what it was. The school, I believe it was the, in regards to the shooting that happened in Florida and procedures and stuff, and whether or not we're prepared and have plans in place. And we did have a discussion because of that incident that happened. We had that discussion last night at our police commission meeting. Had you, one of you attended, you probably could have brought that forward, but please do go ahead and schedule a meeting with the chief, and they can reiterate what we discussed last night. Rest assured, we do have plans in place. We do have a very good system for keeping tabs on things per se, but just wanted to mention that we just had that discussion last night.
Good, thank you. Further public participation? Yes, Kirk.
Kirk Monstream, 278 South Main Street. I'd like to just reiterate in support, with all respect, to Mrs. Barbara Schmiegel. She's a true town original. She's to be cherished, and to know her is and I can put on public, is to love her. You know, she is a true original. She's pencil and paper, down to earth, knows so much about this town. And to her credit, she worked. I've known her for several years, worked with her on these commissions. Her heart and soul is into this town. And the rejection that she's dealt with, and it's fiscally challenging and all that stuff, she's really putting together a home run for the town. And I hope that you know, it sounded like a letter was needed. Really, you know, she left all her calling cards. She's a true original with her presentation and everything. Her heart's in it for the town and for all of us in this room. And I hope you know, hope we all can help her the way she truly is. And an asset to this town and this one.
Thank you. Further public participation? Okay, we'll make a motion to go in, take a 5-minute break, go into
I got one question here while this bill stuff is in front of me.
Yes.
Okay. There's bills here for about $500,000 for the school roof.
Yes.
Okay. My understanding is that roof is leaking, is that true?
That's also true.
Why would we give this money until that's fixed?
They must have put up a bond.
Yeah, I think.
They put up a bond. Did that work?
I don't think.
I think we ought to find out specifically, but we need money over, you know?
Well, it does go through a process. The building committee authorizes those payments. We have a person in charge.
My name's going to be on there. I want to know.
We'll find out. That's fair enough.
Probably should have withheld like a few bucks till they got it right.
But did you notice? I know that. But did you notice that one thing that say at the beginning of the book? School.